Okay. Well, I hope the audio and everything's working well. I forgot to do a sound check, so we're just gonna go right in and start. What's up, guys? My name is Gabriel Quinn. I'm a concept artist, world builder, illustrator, all that fun stuff. And today I wanted to just return back to an older project that I was working on a lot on stream and just kind of make some headway with it. I'm in a phase with some of my projects where I'm my patience is waning and I'm really wanting to just kind of execute and get stuff done. So I think it's a good phase, you know. There was a time where I was just really letting all my projects breathe and just kind of letting them sort of flow and all that stuff, but listen, man, it's time to start putting the axe to some of these beasts, I guess. So yeah, here's some characters I've been working on for I think like a day or so. Yeah, about a day, maybe like a day and a half. It's just a trio, and this was a fun kind of character experiment where I just wanted to have a funky trio dynamic that I could see in many different narrative situations and many different kind of comedic scenarios or adventurous scenarios. We have this kind of a sort of shot caller front man who's definitely in charge with his big goggles, you know, and he's got his hands in his pockets. He's got this big jacket, you know, creating a lot of big space and oomph. And then we've got his little helper over here with his telescope, the telescope boy, who I guess he thought he would be safe if he was just the telescope boy, but unfortunately the ship's hound really likes to go for his ankles. So I added some kind of patches on the pants to show that there's some, you know, damage done to some of the clothing around where his ankles are. So he's always maybe got a funny dynamic with the dog. And then we have a character over here who I don't really know what his deal is. He's sort of just over here. He's got this container with a skull on it, and he's holding it quite close to his chest. So I'm not 100% sure, you know, what's going on here, but we're rolling with it, I guess, you know, finding it as we go. So we're doing a bit of a nighttime stream today where I haven't really streamed at night in a long time. Usually I'll stream a lot earlier so more people can see, but I've been kind of putting off live streaming for a while, so I figured why not just jump online, you know, I'm feeling it right now, even though it's almost like 10 p.m. my time. We're doing a bit of a nocturnal stream here. But let me walk you through a little bit of the process for these guys. So I started with a really rough sketch, and you can see here that it's like really, really rough. And for me, at this point in my kind of creative vibe or my current set of skills, I personally like to work really, really, really loose with the initial sketch, like really, really loose. Like I really just want to go for energy and gesture, and I'm thinking about the idea. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about the idea. So with this one, this was kind of the idea. It was the exact same thing you see kind of in the final here, which is you know, these quirky character trio with this dynamic, and we put it all together. So we started off with, I believe, the line art, which is here, I think. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we started with the line art. And the line art, if we kind of line it up on top of the rough sketch down here, yeah, you can see we're pretty close, but there are some adaptations that we made. So, you know, with the big guy, we kind of, I think, elongated his face, made him a little bit more, what's the term? I guess like less kind of caricatured, a little bit more grounded, maybe. And with this little guy, we kind of modified the expression, and we the biggest change is definitely the dog, where I knew there was just kind of a creature down here, and I just went in straight with the line art and just said, you know, let's just go for it. Let's just draw this dog. So I just drew it straight line art, you know, no undersketch or anything. So I'm kind of like pretty confident with this mouth shape and this kind of dog head shape. So I've drawn it a lot in the past. I feel like I have a good understanding of it, so it was kind of easy for me to just go in without much of an undersketch. But if you're unfamiliar with subject matter, it's really helpful to give yourself a more descriptive undersketch, you know, rather than just going in raw, you know. But then I decided to punch in some colors, which is, if you know anything about me, you know it's like my favorite part. So I punched in the colors. Yeah, I'll show you the kind of process. So what I did was I started with just these like base colors essentially. This is just kind of the normal flat values. I started with flat colors. And it's interesting when you just start with flat color, you kind of just get a really strong read for the shapes, which I always love. I love this part of the process. And when I went in with value, I just went for a straight cell shading value, which I like this look. Honestly, it's kind of nice. You know, when I was working on it, a few of my patrons in the Discord were kind of mentioning that it looks like kind of almost like a Ghibli style with the kind of cell shading, which I like that effect. But these days I've been going a little bit more towards like the painterly and the textured, so I decided to modify it a little bit. So what I did was, you can see I've got all these hard edges in the pants, and when I switch to the next version, I've softened some of those edges, and I've added some color to this to the multiply layer that I've used for the shadows here. And you can see that if I make it normal, you can see like what the color of the shadows actually are, which is always kind of cool. So you can see that I went for more of like a yellow for the shadow on the pants down here. I went for a blue on the shadow of the jacket, and you know, just kind of like matching the vibe in a way, which I think is pretty cool. And then you end up getting this cool kind of effect, whereas before everything was just neutral kind of gray. And then here there's a bit more, like with the shirt over here, you can see the orange shadow. It looks more realistic than just the gray shadow. The gray shadow just kind of desaturates and, you know, makes things look a little bit more dull. But this actually is more close to the local value in this lighting scenario, which is nice. As always, I answer pretty much every question that people ask in the chat. So if you find your way into this live stream late at night, feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat. More than happy to answer. And yeah, so there you go. All right. I'm gonna take a second to let the I always try and let the patrons know when I'm live, you know. So I'll let them know here. I'll ping the patrons. I set up this automatic thing in the Discord, and it just doesn't necessarily work all the time. I think it's YouTube. It's not the actual bot or the tool in the Discord. I think it's YouTube that kind of makes it so it doesn't register as like posting a video or something, but it's supposed to kind of notify people with like a specific tag and everything. But really, I just wanted to talk about this project because I've been working on this for a little while, and I've been really developing the look of this kind of world for a while, and I feel like I found a good middle ground here. So I'm enjoying it. So I added another level of kind of highlight here where you can see specifically on the jacket, I'm going a little bit lighter. So I'm pushing like kind of a third value in where, you know, the material of the leather is maybe like a little bit more, it's not shiny, but it's like it's getting maybe a little bit desaturated by like the normal light of the sky, for instance. And then I did a brush pass on top of everything. So this is typically what I'll do is I'll do like a basic pass, and then I'll clarify those shadow shapes and add some color to those shadow shapes, and then I'll do like an over the top, just like on top of everything, under the line still kind of pass on the highlights and shadows. Just clean everything up with a nice textured brush. So you can see I added where the coat over here was like just very simple shapes. I added a lot more texture in there, a lot more depth, you know, make the material make a bit more sense. Yeah, I feel like that's working pretty well. So in the final here, you can see I've upped the detail even more in a lot of different areas. So a lot of changes to the guy on the left here where I added in some facial hair and kind of pushed the expression to be a bit more of a grimace with these big old teeth, you know. I like doing big chunky teeth like that. Over here with the telescope carrier, you know, you can see we added a lot more detail to kind of indicate the metallic material of the brass here. And we added some kind of indications of the fuzziness on his sweater. You know, we added some more details in there. And then we also we changed the direction of the eyes of the dog, because before it looked like the dog was just kind of happy or just kind of looking at the guy. But by placing the eyes more, looking towards the foot, you know, it kind of, I think, places back the emphasis of the dog's kind of like nipping at his ankles, and they have that kind of dynamic. So that was a fun thing for sure. Here, let's see here. All right. Yeah. So that's what that was, the kind of changes where we're at now. Some other major changes you can see on the main guy here. We went in, man. We went in on doing some really nice kind of rendering. Well, I say really nice. It's my drawing. Maybe it's a bit, I guess, egotistical to say that, but I think it's really nice. I think we did some really nice rendering on the belt here, kind of showing off that kind of almost polished leather material where you see those kind of light reflections on the belt and those kind of creases and folds and on those forms. And on the jacket, we added a couple specular highlights, and that just kind of makes it feel like that, like sealskin adventure jacket or something like that, where we've got that vibe here. So again, kind of just going back from the original rough sketch to where we are now, we started super loose and then we just kind of went straight in and got to a pretty decent result. Like I'm pretty happy with how this is going. So that's kind of the explanation, I guess, for what we're kind of working on. If you guys have seen my past streams, you know that I have been working on this Sky Pirate IP for like a long time. I've done like a bunch of airship designs and I've done like a bunch of stuff for it, but have never gotten quite to a finish that I am kind of happy with. We're always still developing and working on it as time goes on. So we'll see how we go today. We'll make some headway. But it's good just to talk about your project with people, just kind of work on it live, keep the momentum going. You know how it is. Increasingly, I keep getting questions from people on, like, how are you so productive with your world building? How do you get so much done? And blah, 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 blah. And I don't know what to say to you guys other than, like, honestly, I'm probably not getting as much done as you think, or at least maybe I don't think I'm getting as much done as maybe I even am. But I always feel like I'm not doing enough in terms of the world building stuff because I've got maybe one too many projects going, and I'm always kind of revising and messing around with stuff and changing the story and adding elements. But what I will say is, I think the thing that's helped me the most with my world building projects has just been like keeping it really chill for the most part, just keeping it really chill and working on stuff that I find exciting. Typically whenever I start to feel like I'm forcing something or I'm trying to bend something into something else, I just very quickly acknowledge, like, you know what, this isn't where I want to be, as a creative person. Like, I don't want to be forcing this into a box. I don't want to be pushing this into a realm in which it does not belong. It's very easy to try to force your projects to be something that they're not. But yeah, and I see some folks have trickled in, so I'll say it again. If you guys have any world building questions, design questions, or you just want to say hi, feel free to write in the chat or just watch. I'm just going to be drawing and talking for a while. So there was a piece that I've been working on for, goodness gracious, probably quite a long time. I'll show you the piece here. It's this piece. So I've got a bunch of different versions of this piece where I've been kind of like developing the look of it. I've got this kind of very punched in version. I've got this kind of close-up version where there's like a smaller ship. But the idea of this piece, maybe I've added a bit too much haze in this second version. Kind of lost some of the clarity here. We've got this airship kind of piercing through the clouds, coming out, maybe about to do some kind of battle. There's like a smaller ship here. But I've done quite a few versions of this piece. I think I did one where, yeah, we got some like birds in the distance and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we might do some painting today. We might do some character stuff today. It might do a little bit of both. Who knows? But yeah, we'll work on some stuff maybe. Who knows? But yeah, so let's see here. We also have some other versions of characters that I was working on. So I'll show you some other rough sketches that are kind of options for what we could work on today. Yeah, I'm messing around with some designs, and oh, this was a cool design. I did this for a character design challenge in the Patreon Discord, which you can join in the description if you want to. But yeah, this was a fun one. This was based on these references, kind of made a cool design based off of that, unrelated to the project. I'm just kind of flicking through my file here. So yeah, I have some other character designs that I was thinking about working on as well for this Sky Pirate thing. I really wanted a female captain for the kind of Sky Pirate universe. I wanted like a really interesting female captain, and man, these days I've just been so inspired by Studio Ghibli. I don't know about you guys, but it's just really present in my mind. I feel like I'm always inspired by Ghibli or whatever, but recently it's been especially so. And specifically characters like Lady Eboshi, you know, like really powerful, intense, cool characters. But then I was thinking, you know, about this kind of very intense, strong character, like, the big pirate hat and all of that stuff. And hello, what's going on here? Here we go. And this kind of archetypal character design of this like very strong, intense female character. But then I was also thinking, like, what if we had a character who, and I know this is super rough, but what if we have a character who's just like lounging in their captain's chair, just like totally conked out, asleep, with like some kind of elixir in her arm, and she has all these bottles around her. I was really inspired by what's his name? The dad from Ponyo, who has all of his elixirs. And I love the scene where he takes a sip of the elixir and it like electrifies his hair, and then he pours it in the kind of basin thing that he has in his underwater lair. And I was thinking about that same idea for a character where she's got all of these different elixirs, but maybe she like takes a sip and then pours it in the engine of her airship, and it makes it go like turbo mode or something, you know. But I like the idea that she drinks it and it has that effect, and she puts it in the the engine or the whatever kind of turbo bay, and it has a similar effect on the ship, you know. It's like a funny narrative idea that I was thinking about going for. So there's that. We can also just free sketch, though. We can just sketch for a while too. These guys, we can keep rendering this if we want to and kind of keep pushing this design, but it's maybe a good time to take a break from it. Maybe we'll come back to it in a little bit. But yeah, I'm thinking about streaming for a few hours tonight, actually. I'm thinking about going for a little bit. What's up, Ryan? We got Ryan in the chat. Good to see you, dude. How's the weather over in Jersey, my friend? Yeah. I think I'm going to go for kind of a cloud piece. Just kind of quickly. We'll just like bash out a cloud piece. I've been really trying to take notes from a few friends of mine who are just so skilled at painting clouds. In particular, I have a friend, his name is Alex Henderson, which you should go check out his work if you don't know it. And he's just so good at painting clouds, and I'm always just so impressed to see his workflow and kind of how he does it. So I've been asking him to kind of help me with my clouds, and he's been very, very graciously assisting me recently, which has been fantastic. So I'm developing my own process for painting clouds, like a little bit slowly over time. So we've got some workflows to go with here, which is cool. Ryan says, actually, it's been super nice here, a little breezy with some epic clouds. Dude, yeah, same here in the city, man. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear it. So I've been really enjoying these kind of epic paintings of ships on the sea, where there's like pretty intense clouds, and it puts the ship in like a really dark silhouette. And I was thinking about doing something like that today. I also have to remember you guys are watching on YouTube, so if I work really small, it looks kind of weird for you guys, so I have to like zoom in. I have to like remember to do that a lot of the time. But yeah, let's lay some bass tones down here for a little bit. All right. So for this one, I'm going to do a little bit of like a no-tan approach. So I'm going to kind of come at it from two pretty extreme values and like work my way back probably into something more manageable or chill. So we'll start with a pretty deep, maybe blue color or something here. I think that works. Yeah. So I think I want a ship to be like coming around the bend. That's like how I want the feeling to be. So I think I'll abstract out, and I'll do this on a second layer actually, since it's the ship. I'll abstract out a little silhouette of what a airship could look like in this world. I've done so many designs of airships for this project, so it's kind of like just in my brain now at this point. But I'll do a little bit of a silhouette here of what a ship could be, kind of coming through or coming around the clouds. I really want something here in the foreground. I guess I'll do this on a separate layer as well, I suppose. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, a pretty strong shadow in the foreground. And I want some pretty intense shadows kind of up here. This is the feeling I want to give this piece. I want to give this piece a sense of depth. So there's like stacked layers this one in the foreground, this one in the background. And then as we kind of come forward, I mean, maybe we'll get a couple pockets of shadow, but I think this is the main shape we want for this piece. I'm tempted to make the ship a little bit smaller and maybe add in a few other ships as well as like a little support ships or something, like as it's kind of coming around the bend. We could do that sort of idea if we want to add some complexity and some kind of interest here. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. So, all right, we have our ships, we have our main clouds. Yeah, and then I think now we want to be adding in some of these intense shapes here as it kind of comes back and forward. Sometimes what I like to do, and I don't know if you guys like to do this, but sometimes I like to just come in and add in a pretty intense shadow layer, you know, something pretty darn darkening, you know, just to kind of neutralize all the values, which is what I like to do a lot of the time. I feel like it has a pretty powerful effect. So we'll just do multiply with like this kind of neutral blue color. And what this does is it drops this center value, or the lightest value, to kind of this dark midtone value. So now we've kind of got another value in the works here. I didn't do it to the ship. I mean, I guess I could do it to the ship in the foreground, so we have the same effect, I guess. But really what I'm going for is I want to be able to pull back. So I'll use a mask here, and this area behind this cloud, I'm just going to go ahead and use white to just kind of erase back some of this area. Add some texture to some of these areas. Kind of go back to black, work in some shadows again. So what's cool about this is when you're painting on a mask, you essentially just can push and pull the values back and forth with whatever brushes you have, and it's just like a stock black and white, and it kind of goes in between. It's pretty cool. I really like working in this way. It's yielded a lot of really interesting results. Use this a lot in the recent dragon design class, which, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about the dragon design class. I think I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. I want to stream again tomorrow. I want to get back in the habit of daily streaming. I feel like I've said that so many times on here, but I really want to, man. I really, really want to. So that's my jam for that. I want to do some daily streams. So just kind of whenever for a couple hours, just draw live and talk to you guys. I mean, I feel like when I think back to when I was happiest working on my own projects, it was definitely when I was live on stream with everybody. It was just so cool. Okay, here's an interesting thing we could do. What we could do here is we could have like a highlight on the ship kind of coming on the front here or something like that. And we could have the cast shadow of the ship kind of coming forward out of the cloud. And we could do like another one for the smaller ship. Like we could do that cool kind of drop shadow thing. No, that takes away from what we're trying to go for with this composition. So we'll just keep working on it. Dobby is free. First of all, fantastic username. That's amazing. Says, yay, I'm finally online when you stream. Would you ever do the Dragon Workshop again? Oh, great question. I absolutely would do the Dragon Workshop again. I think my one of the blunders I did with the Dragon Design Workshop is I scheduled it because I had a very, very short window of time when I could do it. There was like a lot going on in my life. Like I had to get my girlfriend out of her apartment so that she could prepare to start med school, and moving her out took like a week longer than I thought. And then there was like basically a week in between where I could actually do like heavy advertising for the course. So I feel like people didn't have enough notice to take the dragon design course. Like by the time they found out about it, like I also didn't do a video for it just because like I just found myself not having the time to make an ad video for it. So I feel really bad for the fact that only like a set number of people actually like knew about it with enough notice to plan it out and schedule it into their lives. And also the fact that it was 9 days, it was great for me. It was perfect for me. Like I think if I could do every class in like a more condensed format, that would be perfect. But it's a little less appealing for people because if you have the same amount of material for a class but you stretch it across like 5 weeks and you say like, hey, this is like a 5-week class, people are like, oh cool, 5 weeks, yeah, that's worth it. But if you say 9 days, even if it's the same amount of material and the same amount of like, assignment work and feedback and all that stuff, people will kind of go like, oh, 9 days, that's a pretty short class. Like, so I'm learning a lot more about like the perception and stuff around certain classes and everything, which is good. But yeah, for those of you guys who are watching my stream for the first time, I teach a lot of classes, usually by request. Like people kind of ask for classes on subjects that I have a lot of interest in. The last one was dragon design, which was just so sick. Do you guys want to see a demo piece I did for that? I'll show you. It's pretty cool. In my opinion, it's pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah. Whoa, man. I haven't looked at it since yesterday. Check this out. This is so sick. So like this was a cool piece that I did for the class, which was essentially like it was a material demo, where we took like a kind of like a random material, which was opal, and we did a dragon based on that material because the dragon design class, it was a lot of it was about rendering, like a lot of it, like it was a lot about structure and how to figure out what a dragon is, but the bulk of the class was, or not the bulk of the class, but a huge emphasis was on rendering because people just have no clue how to render stuff. So this was a really fun demo to show the how the materials kind of make a design come to life. So this was a pretty sick piece that I was really happy with. I was really happy with how this turned out, and I went through like a lot of development to kind of get here. So, and it ended up being like a cool like ethereal stone dragon, and my favorite part is the tiny wizard who's like beseeching the dragon with his magic. He's like, "Oh, mighty dragon, please help me with my magic, or I make a magical offering." He's very it's very like, "Oh, dragon, wise dragon, please rescue my people, dragon. Oh, dragon, I offer you my wizardry, I devote myself to you, dragon." That's like the vibe of the little wizard. But that was a fun piece. That was a really fun piece. So that was cool. But it was so much fun to do that class, man. That was, I think, like the most fun class I've done in a while. It was a really good one. So I absolutely want to run it again. I'll probably run it, honestly, next year, I think. Unless there's like serious demand. If you guys want me to rerun the dragon design class, I will rerun it. It was, what I will say is it was very effective. Like the results from the students it was huge results. It was like really effective. So I know the material is like really solid. So I'm happy to run it again. If people want it. But actually the next class is going to be in November. So I guess mark your calendar. It's going to be a 4-week class in November. I haven't announced it yet, but it's I'm in between costume design or world building, because when I started laying out the costume design one, I just found myself really just teaching a lot of world building principles with costume design. So I was wondering, like, should I just do a world building class instead? But I think I'll do, a more specific thing. Like, it's probably going to be like world building with costume design, and it's going to be very focused on story, which is going to be sick. I'm really excited for it. Because I find that's like usually the weak link with people when they're wanting to be character designers or even when they just want to be working on their world building project. Like people are really stuck in the whole like, I put a book on my character's belt or like a scroll on my character's belt and like that's the design, like this is the idea, So I want to give people more options. That's always my goal with the classes, is give people a very strong set of tools that they can rely on. Anyway, enough about that. Let's keep talking about this piece. So this piece is, we're doing a cool one with the these ships coming through. What's cool about what we're doing here is we're just kind of carving out shapes with light. So one thing I talk about a lot in my classes is how rendering is just kind of light interacting with a material, and every object has form, so you don't have to say light interacting with form because, form is just there. But if you say light interacting with material, it adds a little bit more nuance because, light interacts with material in different ways. Like with clouds, it can be illumined from the inside, but it can also be like cast light from another source. So there's like different kinds of illumination you can get in clouds per se. So That's something that, you know, you have to be conscious of the material when you're designing and rendering. Whereas with form, you know, form's always going to be there. You're always describing form when you're using light for any capacity. Also, what's up, guys? There's like 15 of you. Damn, that's sick. Hell yeah. W's Free says, I feel the world building class would be awesome. I'm currently in second year of concept art course in Sydney, Australia. Man, you know, a lot of Aussies. A lot of Aussies. I had a Aussie student in my last class for the dragon design one. I was so worried about his sleep because he would literally be up in the middle of the night to take the class because it was in the morning. It was in the morning, and it was just, it was so, oh man, he'd get up and he'd just be there, and I'm like, dude, are you okay? And he'd just be so sleepy, and I'm like, buddy, oh man, it's so interesting. So it's tough because I want to do classes for everyone in the world, you know. But it's the time zones are rough, man. But hey, if you want to stick it out, you know, it's your sleep, man. It's your sleep. Pretty crazy. Yeah, I've had two Aussie students and two New Zealanders in my classes. For some reason, I attract a lot of New Zealanders and Australians and Germans. But honestly, I love my German students. My German students rule. They're just the best. I love them so much. Very, very like diligent and like just great. Okay, we've got some interesting shapes. When I zoom out from far away, I really like the shapes that are going on here. I think they're really great. Like I really like these shapes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, because I'm honestly, I'm a little bit of a coward sometimes. Like I just don't like to work super destructively. So I'm just gonna make a copy of these layers and I'm gonna merge them together. So now I'm gonna use a soft brush for a little bit, an airbrush, just to kind of push and pull some shapes forward and backward. So I'm gonna take this very dark shape. I'm just gonna push it forward, push it back a little bit, add some more depth, add some more elements here, push the silhouette maybe, that hard dark edge into that hard kind of light edge coming from the top. Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to like covering a lot of ground with design in particular, when you're doing like a lot of form stuff, the airbrush tool can just be like a huge time saver. I'm gonna cut into the background a little bit here. I'm wondering if I want to just do these two on separate layers just to have like an easier time. I think I'll do that. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Grabbing this with the magic wand tool. So what we're doing here is we're laying out a lot of forms essentially, but we can come back in and like edit those forms as we go. So for instance here, you know, we can kind of cut this out. Yeah, we'll obviously add in some values back here. But you can kind of push things forward and backward. It's a pretty interesting workflow. But we'll come back in with the textured brush and kind of like make it look a bit more painterly like we've been doing with some of the other pieces. So we'll add in some of those dark shapes in the foreground. You know, honestly, I think it's like taking a little bit away from the momentum of the piece, having those bits in front. I think we need like a big thing in front. Yeah. That adds a lot more momentum, I think. Ooh. Yeah, I like that a lot more. Cool. So yeah, nice. We got a lot of nice shapes here we're working with. Some really big shadow shapes, really dark shapes, to be honest. One thing I might do is I might just lift this just up a step, just like up one value. And the one back here that's like really dark over the ship, I might lift that up too. I think I'll lift it up quite a bit. Because when you start having these really dark shapes, you're saying maybe a little bit more about like sometimes like the local values of the clouds. Like you're saying the clouds are dark, which I guess they could be. Some of the clouds could be dark. Um, but we want this idea of like there's still like light coming through. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, but good job doing your concept art course in Sydney, dude. I hope it goes well. Yeah, I didn't study concept art when I was studying art. I didn't really I knew about concept art, but I had like some really negative experiences online with concept artists, and those experiences really like tainted my view of the craft just because of how like I don't know, like strangely cruel a few individuals were to me when I was younger. So I just it had a really bad taste in my mouth when I was younger doing concept art. So I just didn't really pursue it. But after I studied illustration, I I found concept art again through like Lightbox Online and all of that stuff, and I had been practicing drawing like every day of my life, you know. So it was a pretty easy transition to kind of switch back over and start pursuing the concepting again, which was cool. So I was able to kind of like re-find it um like when I was in a better spot and when I had some more mental fortitude, and like I kind of knew that I kind of knew things that also like you know when you get to a certain skill level it's like you know it's kind of hard or impossible for people to kind of like bully you in that same way. So it's really tough when you're starting out because like people can be really really cruel for like seemingly no reason, and you're early on in your journey, so it's not like you can defend yourself and say, oh no, like I understand this and I make good art. It's like maybe the art you make is kind of sus, but you know people have this thing where if you make you know like kind of not perfect art when you're younger, they you know it's just like you just can't get over or you can't get better. So that was kind of the feeling of a lot of the online art spaces for concept art when I was younger. But things have changed a lot recently. You still get those folks who are a little bit, I think, like fixated on certain elements of like concept art. Like they're very fixated on getting very specific skills by very specific ages and like that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's been, I think the community is much more positive now than they were like 10, 20 years ago, which is good to see. Keegan, speaking of Kiwis, what's going on, Keegan? How's it going? Oh yeah, this is a good time for you, finally. Speaking of one of my Kiwi students. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys are tuning in from outside of the US or Canada or something like let me know in the chat where you guys are coming from. Like I'd love to know where you guys are all where you guys are all from, man. That'd be so cool to find out. All right, quick value check. Values are looking pretty good, boys. This is looking pretty good, I gotta say. Looking pretty good. Good, thanks. How about you? Oh man, it's going pretty good. Yeah, it's going pretty good. Um, my girlfriend's been visiting her family for about a month now before she starts medical school, which I'm just so proud of her. She's like the most incredible woman I've ever met in my life, and she's back in a couple days, so I'm very excited for her to be back. Oh my goodness, I'm very excited. So that's gonna be real good for me. I'm real excited for it. So that's what's going on. Yeah, also just like reflecting after teaching the dragon course, which was just such a blast. Learned so much teaching that class, man. Oh my goodness. It was very technical, very technical class. Um, which was fun. Yeah, next time I'll stream, I'll showcase some of the student work because there's some really good stuff. Hmm. Definitely don't want to overwork this thing in the front. This kind of bigger thing. Might go for some bigger paint strokes. Yeah. You don't want to overwork stuff that doesn't need to be overworked, you know? I'm working small again. But it's you have to work small when you're doing this kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, no, life is good, man. Yeah, yeah, the course went great. Keegan, it was a real fun time. It was very fun to teach because I just love dragons so much. So it was just really fun to just teach dragons. It's simpler than you think, but it's still very challenging. But dragons are a great like fundamentals check because if your fundamentals aren't strong, you can't do dragons. Your dragons are going to suffer. So it was a great opportunity to teach the fundamentals, which I've been enjoying more recently. It's funny, when I started streaming, I'm like, I'm never talking about the fundamentals. It's so annoying and so boring and frustrating, and I don't want to do it. And man, boy, how the turntables. I just love talking about the fundamentals now. It's it's kind of crazy how that happens. I was not expecting that, to be honest. I was not expecting it. But my appreciation has just skyrocketed for the fundamentals, man. It's just crazy. I think it's like this thing where, a lot of artists can have, I think, like hubris about how they get their skills or like where their skill comes from. And at a certain point I had to just like be honest with the fact that, having strong knowledge of certain fundamentals is what made my art so much better. It wasn't like me or the sense of like me-ness of like, I did it with my skill and intuition and all of that stuff and everything. And it's like, yeah, maybe you figured some stuff out, on your own, but the stuff you figured out on your own was true before you figured it out, and you could have gotten there faster with some study and some humility, but you brute forced it, so you think you own it, just because you brute forced it. But it's not true. We all are humble before the fundamentals, man. Ryan says huge Gabriel character arc change. That's funny. Dude, what's up with these crowns in the chat? I don't understand. What is it? Top fans. Oh, interesting. I don't even know how this works. That's so weird. Yeah, I know some streamers, they they do they like accept donations live for stuff. I don't even know, like, I don't get that. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, all right, this is looking pretty good so far. So we've got some nice cloud shapes. Really digging the vibes. Usually with stuff like this, the thing that makes things look like realistic are little edges, like little edge changes and like little things that say a lot about the form. Like if we just kind of like push a crevice or a crease in a couple areas, like it just kind of adds this element of like, oh yeah, nice. That's like very realistic. Nice. So we want to make sure to include areas like that in our piece where we have that sense of edge, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Ryan. I don't really understand. I wonder if I can I disable it? Can I disable the top fans? I can't disable it. I don't know how. How weird. Well, there you go. All right, we're going to take this area here. We're going to add some texture, baby. Another thing that is important a lot of the time is wherever light is hitting, there is oftentimes like a bloom effect of light where there's kind of like an ambient glow. So wherever you have your direct light kind of hitting the clouds, especially when there's like areas of shadow around, it can really help to have some of that like ambient sort of glow, that kind of bloom look. So I'm tempted to add some like real intense like pinks and stuff in these areas just because I think it looks just so good. So I think I'm going to add some pinks in here. Gonna flip canvas, check our values. Yep, looking pretty good. Keegan says, oh, I love chunky feeling clouds. The volume is awesome. CJ says, hey, we're just going to go to bed, but I saw you were live. Just wanted to pop in and say hello and good night. Yo, what up, CJ? Hi and bye, buddy. W Free says, I struggle with clouds, keeping their form while making them feel soft. Yeah. Clouds they're really hard, which is why I've been putting a lot more effort into trying to improve my clouds, especially because like one of my IPs is just in the clouds permanently. It's just where everything is. They're in the clouds. So I've been trying to improve my my cloud knowledge, and that's part of the reason why I made this IP is to like challenge my skills and improve my capacity to paint clouds. That was like totally part of the reason, which I'm very glad I did because it's been really fun and cool to like learn. CJ says, paint looking cool. Thanks, dude. You're looking cool, probably. Let's see. Tabby's Free says, hello and good night, CJ. Aruno says, good evening. Yo, what up, Aruno? How's it going? How's it going in Brazil? Brazil. Futebol do Brasil. Hell yeah. Okay, so we have some really cool textures here, some cool shapes. I think we could just like render and push stuff around till the cows come home, to be honest. So I feel like we should probably start to wrap up some of these ideas, I guess, that we have on the page here. Start to let things just be. At a certain point, you know, if you want a painting to feel loose, you have to stop at a certain point. You can't just keep going. So I think I'm going to stop pretty soon. All right, let's take a quick look at the values from very, very far away. All right, what I will say is I like this little area here, but it is just kind of killing the energy. So we're going to push it down a little bit. Just a little bit. Same up here. I think we want some deeper colors. To help frame the piece. Don't want to remove those big anchoring compositional elements to distract. Maybe maybe we do something in front here. Hmm. What if we come up and out? Is that better? No. I like this kind of claustrophobic, billowing feeling as it expands out. It's nice. Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, cool. Got some stuff going on here. Nice. Yeah, I like that white here in the top foreground. We'll add some white to the bottom here as well. Yeah, all right, there we go. There we go. All right, this is looking pretty done in terms of the clouds. Okay. Yeah, so that was pretty quick. This whole process, this kind of turnaround from super rough sketch to, or super rough kind of painting sketch to where we're at now. That was pretty quick, right? Yeah, I'm happy with that. That was good. I'm always like trying to see how I can speed up and see how I can get a little bit better every time. So happy to see that my process was pretty quick for this one. Could it be better? Definitely. Do I want to paint this forever? Probably not. You know, this is the kind of image that it's important when you're working on images to know like where is this image being seen? Like where is this image going to show up in a story or in a thing? And I think that my impression of this piece, or what I want from this piece, is I want it to be like something you see kind of in passing. Like you're looking at the piece, maybe you get some story information, maybe like this is next to some text. So it's like you can kind of look over and be like, oh, cool, yeah. So they're like in the clouds. That's the vibe, and also like here's the impression of the thing. But this isn't going to be like the main poster art, magnum opus for the whole project. That's probably going to be like a bigger kind of battle scene thing that'll do later. But it's easy when you're working on images like this to kind of try to make everything into the magnum opus, or you want everything to be really, really good because you don't necessarily have like as much restraint. And when you're doing world building, you have to be really careful with where you're spending your energy, because if everything you do for your world building project will be like, if everything you're doing is just like nutso crazy rendered, all of that stuff, it's you're not going to be able to finish it, and also it's going to be too much stuff for your audience. Like it's just going to be too much information. So I mean, take everything I say with a grain of salt, of course, and always like go with your gut in terms of if you know something's going to work for your project, do that. You never have to listen to some random guy on the internet. But I have found that it can be a little sometimes problematic if you try and force everything to be like the best thing you've ever done forever, Okay. Some cool shapes down there. Does that even help, or does that just add confusion? I feel like that just adds confusion. What am I doing down here? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, all right. Bam. Now let's work on the ships. So for the ships, I actually think we want to do a little bit more kind of a pushed back feel, I guess. We'll see. Also, Aruna says, it's been nice. Weather's getting better, getting hotter. How about you? Everything nice, dude? Everything's fantastic. And the weather's finally cooling down here, which is really great. It's probably going to get hotter later, but for now it's kind of cool, which is cool. Also didn't Dobby says also didn't realize I was still called Dobby. That's so funny. It's good, bro. It's pretty sick. Keegan says, gotta head out now. Great stream. Dude, take care, Keegan. All the best, man. All right. So, let's see here. All right. Nice. Yeah, let's zoom out again. Yeah, I like the values. I think they're in a good spot. So I want to make sure the silhouette is on point for this little guy. So I think I might go in and push some stuff around, you know, make sure things are actually correct for the silhouette. So I'm just inventing a ship like straight right now. So I'm not using reference. I'm not like designing from anything. I'm just making it up just straight as a silhouette, which means you have some kind of creative liberties. You can sort of like bend and break rules. I'm not working from like a model that it has to be like correct to. The little ship, I don't like. I don't like that silhouette. So do we even need a second ship? I am not convinced we need a second ship. What I'm actually considering doing is making this even thinner. So we get the impression that we're level with this ship. We're like level with it because the wings are like super thin going across. And it's kind of coming forward. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. It's sick. So, okay. Put some engines on the wings, I think. Do I want engines on the wings or do I want like a different vibe? Maybe we want the engines to be like... I like the engines being like up by the balloon area. That kind of feels cool to me. Maybe one on the top as well, perhaps. Just want to make sure the silhouette feels interesting when we look at it from far away and not like confusing. Okay, if we're going to do that, I think we have to drop the wings down a little bit. To like here. No, I like this. I like that. Yeah, cool. All right. Yao Weiying says, yo, going through all your streams right now on the 3rd. Glad I caught this one live. Oh, nice. That's so cool. Yeah, it's so, you know, I was definitely more consistent like earlier on when I started streaming. I was streaming like twice or 3 times a week for sure. And I've kind of slowed down since I started a couple years ago. But I'm always amazed that people are still just finding all the streams and making their way through. And I guess now I feel like a lot of pressure to make each one like really good, especially if like people are gonna see it in the future. And, you know, I got to make sure that everything is like correct and, you know, but that kind of killed my motivation to stream a little bit. So we're just going for fun. It's just for fun. All right. So I'm going to use the marquee tool here to create an oval to get a super sharp silhouette for the balloon hull of the ship. Then I'm going to use the same marquee tool and I'm going to do a circle for here. One for the opposite side. And actually, I might do a little bit in because it's like staggered, right? Yeah. And I'll do one for the top too. So we took what we had before, which was like a pretty like more rough silhouette, which wasn't bad, but we just kind of used the marquee tool, cleaned up some of those shapes, and now it's we have a little bit more confidence in the silhouette. I think like when you're doing man-made stuff like this, the exactness of it can sometimes sell the fact that it's kind of man-made. You know, if you are a little too loose and funky, it can sometimes feel, you know, more like a painting rather than like a painting of a thing, you know? I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, let's see. Mackenzie says faux funsies. Exactly. Faux funsies. Alrighty. So. All right. Yeah. Good spot. We're in a good spot. I'm going to modify these silhouettes a little bit. It's almost a little too clean now, I think. Wondering if making the hull smaller would be better for the design. I actually think so. Yeah, I actually think so. It looks better. Okay. All right. All right. We've been futzing around with this little ship thing for a little too long, I think. We got to actually just get to going with it. So I'll just select the layer and honestly, I don't really know what to do for this design. I guess we'll put like a window in the middle. I always like putting a window in the middle. How big the window is kind of decides how grand the space is, though. Maybe we can put like a smaller window, like here-ish or something. Put like another window there, and maybe like a whisper of a window over here or something, you know? Hmm. I kind of like that. That's looking kind of nice. What I might actually do is I might do a like a spike from the bottom. Keep the kind of like interesting sort of cross-esque silhouette. I think it looks kind of cool. No, not quite. It's okay though. All right, let's get funky with it, boys. So when you have a material that is like a light material and it's like under some heavy shadow, it's still gonna look pretty light, especially relative to some of the other shapes you have. So if we have like engine blocks and stuff kind of coming forward and, you know, part of the ship, the kind of white balloon of the cloth, even when it's in shadow, it'll still look pretty light. Maybe not this light though, but you got to be careful with this stuff, you know? You don't want to overdo how dark something is. Could also have like a very, very slight hint of like rim light coming from behind or something to kind of show the actual value of the thing maybe. But when you're specific with your values like this, again, it kind of like that's what makes it feel like it's in this environment and in this space is making sure that it's consistent. Because if we just did white for this, of like, oh, white ship, white thing, it just like looks really off. Doesn't really look correct. Whereas this actually feels like it could be, you know, the kind of lighter white balloon shape. It kind of looks like an egg, not gonna lie. Which I'm not opposed to. It's kind of funky looking, which I don't hate. But I think we want a little bit more roundness. Kind of makes the silhouette feel a little bit better. So we'll homogenize this value again, which we were experimenting with before. Yeah, that looks better. Now I feel like we want to add some even darker elements to kind of show certain elements of the engine. So if we like, for instance, have engines like this, you know, a lot of the time, because the ship is actually moving, you can't have them be static like this. So we'll have to do like an effect basically for what the engines look like when they're moving. But I'm getting the feeling that we actually have to make these engines a little bit smaller, so that it doesn't look like they're ripping up the fabric of the ship. Ryan says, I'm currently making a sky painting too. Dude, heck yeah, dude. This is the way. Sky pirates? Sky paintings? Absolutely. Tempted to put a frame on it like this where, you know, we have the, like the cage almost around. So there's like structure. You can kind of see the structure. That doesn't look bad. That looks kind of sick, actually. Okay, we're going to keep it. I don't know if we're going to do a cross like this. I feel like maybe we should, but I don't know, because then we could connect it like this, and that looks kind of cool. Yeah, I like it. We're running with it. Yeah, that looks so fire. Oh my gosh, nice. All right, let's do a quick check of how this thing looks from far away. Hey, it looks pretty good, I gotta say. Looks pretty darn good. Because we want this to be like the main focal point of the piece, though, we gotta have some serious values here. But before we do that, I'm gonna clean this up over here. Yeah. You know, I used to be pretty afraid of painting a while ago, and it was mostly because I just didn't really. There was certain things about like light I didn't understand, and that really held me back, I think. You know, because it's not like I didn't know how to draw accurately. So it's like if you can draw accurately, like usually you can like paint somewhat accurately. But there's certain principles when you're like painting stuff and it's not just like line art, you know, that you can just sort of bust out and it, you know, you just draw the outlines of everything correctly and accurately. You're kind of in a position where you really have to pay special attention to the light and the atmosphere of what you're doing. And I was talking to Bobby Chu recently, and Bobby Chu was telling me like it becomes more about learning how to paint different lighting scenarios versus learning how to like paint literal things, because the literal things, you know, you'll just improve with time, and you'll be able to paint those things. Okay, this is a bit too bright. Okay, because this is a sky painting thing, gravity is in effect here. So we have to make sure that the center line of this is actually straight. So it looks pretty straight. How does that feel? Yeah, it feels a little bit better. So the benefit of having this on a separate layer is we can just move it around. So we can kind of have it bigger, smaller, however we want it in this piece. I think even this is maybe a little too much. Let's see what happens if we darken it up. Yeah, maybe this, but like half? Like half of that? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, when we zoom out, it kind of disappears, eh? Do we want it a little bit bigger? Is that better? Or is that worse? No, I like the position it was in. I like this position. I think it's like the correct position. We'll make it look good. We'll make it look good. Don't worry. Don't worry, chat. We'll be fine. Alrighty. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, we're really rocking here. Sometimes I forget my camera's on. I hope I haven't been making any like really weird faces. Okay. So one thing we want to make sure is that there's a sense of depth. So even though it's in shadow, there's still kind of like ambient light in shadow. So we can kind of like pull certain elements down. So we're going to just give form to some of these rounder shapes. It's going to help our piece feel a little bit more three-dimensional and dynamic. Maybe we have some rim light going across the edge, adding some drama to the piece. So rim light is really great when you actually have something to play it off of. So on the top here, it's not actually that helpful. You know, if anything, it kind of can muddy the waters. But down on the bottom of the piece, adding in some rim light can help separate it from the background. That definitely helps to add some depth. We could do a cool thing where like half of it is sort of coming into light. So like one of the wings is getting hit by light. Maybe this part of the engine is getting hit by light. Those kind of scenarios where there's like a really intense light source kind of coming down out of nowhere. It can look real nice. Yeah, I like how that looks. It's looking pretty good. Yeah, we'll keep experimenting with this. Yeah, we'll keep figuring it out. Let's see. I think those lines are a little dark on the these like frame lines. They just feel a little bit dark. Wonder if it wouldn't be better to like go over them with instead of having them be like the dark steel if they're closer to the color of the canvas. Could feel a little bit better. Yeah, that's looking cool. I think it looks a little bit better. Let's see how it looks from far. Yeah, it looks a little bit more clean. Hmm. I'm wondering if it would look better if just like half the ship was just being hit by like a really direct light. Like if that would just look cool. Like that looks pretty cool, right? Maybe we do something like that where we have like a really strong light hitting it from the side or like from like one angle. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So we'll probably do something like that then. Okay, cool. All right, do you guys want to take a break from this and do some character pieces? I feel like character pieces are pretty fun. Yeah. All right, so we've got a pretty good basis for this piece here. One thing we could even do is try making it like really big in the space. Like, what if it was like a really like big kind of coming through the environment? That's one thing we could try. No, I like it small. It's just so much better. It looks so much better here. Yeah, I like it. I like it. All right, we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it for now. We'll leave it for now. All right, let's do some character stuff, boys. So we got options. There's plenty we could do. We could do some lines on top of this one. I don't know if I'm ready for that though. I'm gonna be honest. Let's just sketch one. Why not? All right, before we do that, I'm just gonna take a quick second. I'm just gonna take a bite of my food really quick. So I'm gonna I'm gonna mute myself and turn my camera off for just like 60 seconds. So you'll have to suffer without me for 60 seconds. Okay. Thank you guys for your patience while I took a bite of my very late dinner. All right, let's keep going with this thing. Let's work on some gray here. Something like this. Yeah, there we go. I like working on more of a cream paper. All right, so character. Let's see what we want to do here. All right, what does the story need? The story needs, let's see. Trying to think of what would be productive to illustrate. You always got to think about being productive, you know? I wonder. So there's this character who they're in the story, I think like they're taking like note of who's like entering different pirate competitions. So also this project has gone through a little bit of a evolution where I was thinking of it as a feature film, like an animated film. But recently I've been thinking of it as a game. So, for instance, like the painting we were just working on here, this is kind of like what I imagine a lot of the gameplay to be, where you are a ship and you are, I'll give an example. You're in like third person and you're like here with the ship and you have you're kind of flying it around. You have this kind of third person view. The idea is that you can see in front of you um, the same way that you would see in front of like the bridge of the ship. So your view is like what's in front of you. So the idea is like you're flying this ship forward and you've made modifications to your ship to go faster, slower, blah, blah, blah. Who doesn't matter. Um, but you're in an airship, so it's like very limited. The maneuverability of an airship is very limited. So like for instance, you're here, you have like the clouds in front of you, you're going forward, and because you're a sky pirate, you're like looking for prey. So in the distance, like maybe something will appear, and if you've like unlocked certain sets or whatever, it goes like, bing, look over here, there's a guy you can go get. And so like you fly over to the thing and you lock on and you're like cannons at the ready, pew 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 pew, boom boom boom, you can hit them and all that stuff. Maybe they have defenses and they fire back. Maybe you have a fleet and there's like a couple other ships next to you, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's the jam of what's going on. So the idea is that like you're flying around in the open sky and you're doing this kind of combat. Have you guys played, I don't know if you've played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but there's like a great feeling when you're sailing your ship around that you can kind of just like challenge people and fly and like raid people, and it's got this sense of openness that's kind of cool. So it would be that kind of ship. Then you would get an option of like, do you want to board the ship, question mark? And if it's like, if yes, then you would board their ship, and then it would come up with like, rather than going into some kind of like first person FPS gameplay or something, it would be more of like choices come up where it's like it's a choices matter game all of a sudden, where it's like, do you try to breach the bridge? Like they might have defenses, you might lose some men. It becomes more about like, choices matter, resource management. So the gameplay is RTS and like very alive, and you're flying around and making decisions. But then the inside is very like turn based, and then you meet characters where it's like maybe you meet a captain, who you want to like recruit. Maybe you offer like, do you want to join my fleet? And if they don't like you, if you were like really, if you destroyed one of their ships and then offered to recruit, they'd be like, no, hell no, I'd rather die. Or maybe if you were nice and you kind of just disabled and boarded or something, then they'd be like, all right, fine, 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 yeah, I'll join your fleet. So the idea is like it's one of those games where it's like you're managing resources, all of that stuff. But there are these pirate games that happen where you go to like compete and you can recruit people, and you want your crew to look really cool. So there's like duels and all of that stuff, and it's going to be really fun, and I did some art for that too. But I want to do the pirate who's like keeping the ledger of like the pirate games. So maybe there's like a big book or something. I always love like bureaucracy among like really weird groups, like thief groups. Like it's always funny when there's like a ledger keeper and like a thieves guild, or there's like you know, I always got that feeling from like the Pirates of the Caribbean films, where it's like the pirates have this like really weird esoteric set of rules that they all follow, and it's like super strange and convoluted, and but they're like super rigid about it, and they just like absolutely follow those guidelines even though they're just ridiculous. So that kind of vibe. So I'm thinking maybe we do something something like that. Ryan says like a cooler Sea of Thieves. Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, Sea of Thieves is fun because you're like first person, so you can like jump in the water and go fight people. This one I think would be mostly I don't know if it would be multiplayer. I think there could be some multiplayer elements that could be interesting, but I don't know. I don't know how that would go. But yeah, let's think about this guy who's keeping tabs on the folks. This book is feeling a little too. Maybe it's on like an open chest, this little bookcase thing. Chest is like propped open with some kind of object or something like that. The hinge. That could be fun. You always want to have like, take fun risks and, look for fun opportunities with your props. You don't always want to be so rigid that you can't like have fun and, discover things about your world with your props. Maybe there's a chest here, something like that. Yeah, but that's like where the project is going. It's more turning into a game rather than a movie. It was a movie for a while, so all the designs were kind of going in that movie direction. But honestly, I think these days games are sometimes a more interesting, or not sometimes, but oftentimes a more interesting vessel for story. I've been playing a ton of Hades 2 recently. Oh my gosh, just opened my eyes, dude. It's crazy. Game is awesome. Game rules. I played Hades 1 so much. I 100%ed Hades 1 and I just 100%ed Hades 2. So, I mean, it's in early access, so impossible to 100% it. But as it is now, I've done everything you can do. Oh, man. All right, so we'll put some scrolls here. Some scrolls, information. We'll give this guy maybe like a stool to sit on or something. I'm trying to think. Or maybe they just like stand. Maybe they have a peg leg. Peg legs are fun. Very pirate core. I want this one to feel almost like a jestery kind of guy, but like with glasses. The glasses are essential. If you have a bookkeeper, they gotta have glasses, dude. It's just the rules. Oh, it's not feeling right. I love the scene from A Knight's Tale where they go to joust and they have like the bulletin behind them of like all the different things you can do, and it's like all these kind of shields and stuff like that. And I feel like we want a similar kind of interesting board of items that could be on this board, or something to like discern what the games are, or like what you want to sign up for or something like that. Like I feel like there's a cool element there. Maybe like a leaderboard or something, so we can see like different names or whatever. Like trying to think of how to almost like create a set around this character of like those like compelling elements. So we'll see how this goes. Could also just give him like the Barbosa hat. I love the Barbosa hat. Just the big wide one, the big old feather. He's looking pretty funny. I'm liking him. Sort of. So this kind of sketching process, when it comes to world building, I would call this process like you're hunting while you're sketching. Like you're not sketching something out to be beautiful. You're discovering the idea as you draw it. So something like this, people make a lot of mistakes and think that this is then what they have to finish. This sketch is what they have to finish because they've gone through the process in their life of like sketching and then finishing the sketch, sketching and then finishing the sketch. But when you're doing world building, a lot of what you're doing when you're sketching isn't actually just making a sketch that will become a drawing. That's just artwork. World building is different. You're writing, you're discovering, you're figuring things out. And so when you go about that process and you're sketching while you're ideating, you gotta understand or you gotta realize like, is this sketch to figure something out or is this sketch gonna become a drawing? Because a lot of people would definitely find themselves held hostage by a sketch like this and go, oh gosh, well now I have to finish it. It's like, no, you don't. You can draw this from a different angle. You can expand the idea. You can do a different version. This is like my first time thinking about this character, you know what I mean? Figuring out who I want them to be, how I want their personality to be, you know, what I want the impact on the player to be. How silly I want them to be, how serious I want them to be. These things take time to figure out. You can't just rush that stuff. Dobby says, would you have any advice for creating a portfolio? I love world building the most, but in particular, environments, creature design, and props. I'm trying to get better at characters. I'm trying to start an IP right now and as part of my university project, but just struggling with where to start. Yeah, it's interesting. Gosh. Well, first of all, for the portfolio question, I typically don't give portfolio advice because the requirements of a portfolio are so different depending on what you want to get hired for. And on top of that, they change every year what you should have in your portfolio. It changes all the time. So portfolio advice is something I stay away from because if I say it now, someone in like a year will watch this and be like, oh, I should do that. Or someone in like 10 years will be like, oh, I should do that. I'll tell you what's important to have in your portfolio. What's important to have in your portfolio is you want to show that you have the skill set in that you can draw things well and correctly. Like you're not going to make mistakes in that, like you're not going to draw things inaccurately in a way that's like unappealing and unusable. So there's that. Like you have to have proficiency in your portfolio. No matter how good your ideas are, if you don't have proficiency, none of it matters. Then an important thing to show is your capacity to like understand things. So if you're drawing something, like even something like this, or let's say a different example, if you draw something like this guy, you know, if you do like the cardinal sin of just like putting a square as the buckle for the pants, like a lot of people just draw a square for the buckle for this stuff, you know, something like this. It doesn't scale when you actually go to finish. Because when you draw a character and you have like overly simplistic elements, you're not going to actually be able to show the specific of what the thing is, which is like for games, very important. So you have to show an understanding of what you're drawing. So those two things are very important, proficiency and understanding, where there's not like big giant gaps in what you're doing, and it's actually usable for the studio. So I think those things are important. After that, a lot of it is just like taste. So your portfolio showcases your taste, and you have to be ready for the idea or the possibility that your taste doesn't necessarily like line up with what's hireable right now in the industry. You know, like for instance, like, you know, let's say like K-pop sci-fi is very much a thing, you know, that people want to do, or like the Spider-Verse style, or everyone wants their project to look like Arcane, or whatever it is. You know, if your taste doesn't necessarily fit in with where the industry is moving right now, then it can be hard to get hired with a portfolio, let's say. But if you show the skills and the skills show a certain level of adaptability, it increases your chances of people kind of taking a chance on you. If you're like really good, people will take a chance on you. But if you're not really good, you're kind of limited to your taste a lot of the time. So I think that when it comes to portfolio, rather than focusing on the semantics of what to put in it, just really focus on like making really, really, really great work. I know it's like an annoying answer and maybe just kind of frustrating, but that is the thing that matters the most, is that the work is really great, like a fantastic quality, draftsmanship wise, all of that stuff, and that your ideas are like very well developed, you know? Those are the most important things. All that stuff about like this many characters, this many props, this many whatever, it's like that stuff is, you know, it's recruiter to recruiter. Certain people want to see a ton of sketches, certain people want to see a ton of finished work. It's like everyone's different. So it's hard to know the exact right thing to do. Just know that if your work is just unbelievably good, it's very hard to mess up. That's what I'll say with certainty. It's very, very hard to mess up when your work is just like nutso good. Okay, so yeah, this guy. Yeah, I like the idea that there's a guy with this kind of like you walk up and you sign up to the different things and all of that stuff. I do like this idea. I feel like we got to make it work though in a better way. But I like where the idea is going. Yeah, certainly like where it's going. Let's do a little head sketch here to get the imagination running. Also, I saw Bookworm join and say, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." I'm assuming you're referring to the painting we were working on, this one. In which case, thank you very much. It's coming along kind of nice. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, great question though. With portfolio stuff, just good luck, man. Honestly, good luck. Yeah. Having your work just be really clean and clear is just really nice. W's Free said, "Would you ever be open to doing one-on-one mentorships?" Yeah, absolutely. I have about how many mentees do I have right now? Goodness, like 5. I have like 5 one-on-one mentees right now going currently. Um, yeah, if you want one-on-one mentorship, hit me up, dude. Absolutely. I'll typically do something like either meeting weekly or monthly. That's usually the structure I go with. And usually from either like 1 or 2 hours is what I'll do typically. Yeah, I don't typically advertise the mentorship that much just because like people keep reaching out to me for it. And I've got quite a few students on my roster right now, so it's like I don't know how many more I can take. But honestly, maybe I should like just take a whole bunch. Maybe I should just take a whole bunch of one-on-one mentees. Maybe that would be good. I actually don't know. There was a while where I was trying to balance like more educational stuff and streaming with like freelance stuff. Like I was doing some Lorcana cards and I was doing some other stuff. But honestly, like I just like teaching more. I might just go on a bit of a teaching blitz and make the mentorship more available for people. It has been cool working with mentees and like seeing them grow. Yeah, one of them was actually able to like move on and work in the industry like pretty quick, which was sick. That was really, really, that was awesome. It was a Jake, what's his name? Jake. I don't want to get it wrong because I know a bunch of Jakes. What? Oh, that's why. Yeah, Jake Posh. If you guys look up Jake Posh, he was a recent mentee last year. He's doing really great work now. The potential was always there. Yeah, I want this little guy to be like kind of cute, like you go to the pirate games and he's like, "And what will you be signing up for today?" Like that kind of vibe. What will it be for you today, sir? That kind of vibe. That's what I want from this guy. This ledger and his quill. The quill has like a big feather, maybe. His hand is here, holding the pen. Or something. Something like that. Something like this, I think, would be good. Or maybe he's kind of more hunched over because he's old. Well, what'll it be for you, sir? Toby says, the way you talk about your workflow is really good and easy to follow. Nice, man. I'm so glad about that. And you iterate on your thought process really well, which is super helpful. Dude, heck yeah. Yeah, Ryan said shout out Jake. Dude, yeah, Jake is killing it, man. Jake was like an extremely receptive mentee. He was just really hardworking, and that's what I've noticed is the correlation is like the receptivity and the work ethic. He was just going hard. But it was like you know, I find people who are working like pretty brutal part-time jobs, they improve really quickly because they have a lot of motivation to get out of the part-time job, you know? So sometimes working a, crappy part-time job is like exactly what you need to push yourself into the stratosphere of skill, you know? I worked some really brutal jobs in the past, which were very motivating for me, I think. Yeah, Ryan said me for real. Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Hmm. This guy's so cute. I think he's so cute. Yeah, let's make his eyes a little bit more towards you. So he's like looking at you. It's like, hey. Well, I don't know. I do say, yes, well. Oh man. Wait, let's take a quick break really quick and talk about something. So we've been working on this world building project in the Discord for a while. It's close to being done. I swear it's close to being done. Oh, I'm trying to finish it so bad. But I developed a workflow that I was really happy with it. So I think it'll pop up on screen like beware colors. Yeah, there we go. Bam. So we've been working on this project for a while. I think a few streams ago I talked about it. And if you want to help develop this project, definitely join the Patreon, hop in the Discord, and help me out because I'm like desperately trying to finish it. But the it's like a cool sort of like solar punk esque sci-fi story, and I finally figured out like the workflow that we're gonna do for it. So I finally figured it out. So I'll show you what the workflow is because it's kind of sick. So we started with some really rough sketches. As always, for me, I like really rough sketches. So we started really rough. Then we jumped to line art. So the line art was just like, I just did it as fast as possible. I just like blitzed out the line art as fast as possible, which was, it was hard, but it was really fun. And then I did some colors. And for the colors, what I did was I just took the usually like I usually work with a primary color base for stuff like this because primary colors just look so good. So primary color base, and then kind of added in some greens and oranges and stuff. But I just took a second value and just cell shaded kind of like by hand, just with the paint, not with like a multiply layer or anything. I just like color picked the shadow value, which was strangely in this scenario like faster than what I normally do. And then I took that same process and I did this like really cool retro edit. So I added a linear burn layer. Then I messed with the levels to like basically like punch it so it looked like a kind of like an old VCR aesthetic. So this is like normal, neutral, and then I punched it down and darker, and then I like really brightened it up again. And then I did some chromatic aberration on the lines, which was advice from a friend, which I'm very happy that I took for the chromatic aberration. I thought it looked really sick. Yeah, so that was cool. And then I put it on a background. So essentially I took this base that I had and I put this on like a vibrant background, and I like punched the letters in the background to be this really epic primary blue, and it just came out looking so sick. So I was really happy with this workflow and how like fast it was. This whole thing was like under 2 hours, which I was really happy about. So I'm hoping using this workflow, I'll be able to punch out this world building project like as fast as possible. I've got another character I'm lining up now. It's like this kind of captain character, which I'm doing the lines for currently, and just keeping it real simple and very, very basic. Like normally I care a lot more about the line art than something like this. But because I have to move so quickly for this project, like I'm just like keeping it really simple with how I'm doing the lines. So that's like a cool little thing that I'm doing on the side. I just wanted to share that to kind of like add some hype to what we're working on in the Discord and all of that stuff. We've got a cool project going, and I'm happy with the workflow. So I feel like I've got a good workflow for like a few genres. I feel like I've got a fun sci-fi workflow now, and I've got my classic kind of fantasy workflow that I've been using for a while. So I feel like I'm in a good spot in terms of my process. Like a lot of time and effort developing a process is kind of like paying off. A lot of effort and skill being like directed towards different workflows. Oh, we got a question. Off-brand Rock says, I have an oddly phrased question. How do you recommend better shape language? I can get the figure, I can put it in place, but I can put it on into place, but grasping seems to evade me. Okay, wait, hang on. I have to reread that. I have an oddly phrased question. How do you recommend better shape language? So like, how do you improve your shape language? And you're like grasping the idea of shape language evades you when you're drawing the figure, because you can draw the figure accurately and you can put it into place, but you can't really get the sense of like flow. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So firstly, what I would say, and we're going to go on a bit of a tangent here while I explain this, but let's say we have a term shape language, right? So if we, for instance, say we want better shape language, like I want better of this thing, we first have to acknowledge what this is. Like, what even is shape language, right? So, usually when people are talking about shape language, they're talking about shapes that have a relationship that is somewhat similar or like consistent, let's say, or it has a purpose. So, if I were to use an example with the sketch we're doing, what I would say is there's a lot of concave, convex shapes. So convex shape, concave shape, convex shape, concave shape, convex shape, or concave shape, convex shape. So we have this kind of shape language of like bing, 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 bing. That's pretty much this whole piece. Like bing, 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 bing. There's not a lot of like round circular shapes. It's pretty much just almost all convex concave shapes. So that's a decision that I made both because I like how it looks, because I think it has like a cool sense of appeal, but it's more like the reality of the objects that I'm drawing. I could have chosen to make this a round shape that came forward and it was just round, and this into just like a, I mean, this is kind of a round shape, I guess, but I could have made this into a round shape, and I could have made this into a round shape, and this into a round shape, and I could have made the nose round, and I could have made the mustache round, and I could have made this round, I could have made this round. So I could have just as easily done many, many different shapes to describe a similar thing, but it would have had a different feel. It would have had a different like sense of character and a sense of, you know, purpose and all that stuff. So the difference between this, where it's like boing, 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 or like a circular shape, there is no better or worse. So let's first just get rid of the idea that there can be a better or worse shape language. So that's already like a false premise of better shape language. I think what you're talking about is you want to be considerate of shape language. Like you want to be making decisions with your design in which you're using shape to achieve some kind of goal. So in the case of this, the use of shape to achieve a kind of goal is, I like this kind of pointy, flared, kind of like everything's flaring out into this point. I like how it looks, you know? I like that all of these shapes are like echoes of the same shape. Like this is going this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. You know, I like that idea that everything's kind of like coming forward or like going up, you know, or coming back. Like I like it. I think it looks cool. It adds an edge to the character that makes you feel a certain way. It makes you feel like they're alive in a very particular way. So when you're doing the figure, let's say, and you have the figure and you're drawing the figure, let's, I guess, just use an example where you're drawing the figure and it's very, very basic. So you start with like the torso and the hips and the shoulders and all that stuff, and you are starting to draw the body. Your opportunity for shape and shape design is not necessarily as, like, you're not going to have as many creative decisions in the body when you're just drawing the body just kind of because, you know? So the actual like facts of the body, if we're like just talking about the literality of it, let's say, you know, if we have like the chest and the head and the, you know, the legs and the, you know, quads and all of that stuff, if we're just talking about like the literality of the body, the muscles and the shapes of the body, just like they just kind of look a certain way. So it feels sometimes like you just don't have that many options for shape because like muscles are round, the body's round. And when you're drawing the figure, if you're trying to like really make shape an important part of the figure, it kind of becomes this thing of like, you're now talking about stylization. And the stylization is where you take kind of what's true and you exaggerate it in a way that is like not true to reality. So when people see it, they're not going to associate it with like just a real grounded person. They're going to associate it with like an idea of a person. Like this is a kind of cartoonified version of a person. So you're going to kind of lose a little bit of the grounded nature, But you can do things with the body where, for instance, if we're going to be like, using similar sort of shapes like concave, convex shapes, we can kind of have the rib cage emphasized here and the pecs kind of emphasized here. And we can have the kind of shoulder come up and the tricep kind of come out, the straight arm and all that stuff. Like we can start to make decisions with anatomy that are a little bit more, I think, for creative reasons rather than for realistic reasons. So you might like push certain elements of the body, like for instance, you might accentuate the forearm size of a character to like really push certain shapes, like leading into the fists, for instance. And when it came to like the hips, you might have like really narrow hips and like quads, but then you might like really punch the shins for some reason. Right? And this kind of gives you this interesting sort of like thick and thin motif where you have like really thick shins and thick forearms. This is kind of like the Popeye build, right? Where you're emphasizing or changing anatomy conventions that are going to affect the way the audience perceives the character. So there's that form of stylization where it's like you're literally changing shapes and pushing shapes. But then there's the stylization where you can draw two things very differently. You can draw like a hand very softly, to where you kind of have like the thumb coming out. You can have the fingers coming forward. And you have a lot of these kind of very rounded, soft shapes. So you have an idea of like, this is one way you could draw a hand, for instance. There's so many ways to draw a hand, but there's like one way. But then you could also take the same exact hand idea and you could define it out with really hard edges where you do have areas that are soft, but a lot of the areas you're going to define out as like really intense. So again, same thing, but now instead of just using all soft shapes, we're doing all hard shapes. And what you could even do is if you're stylizing and you want to have like a very appealing like look to something, you could take this whole silhouette of the fingers and just kind of like not always, but sometimes you can just kind of like have that sort of be just like a flat sort of silhouette shape if you wanted it to be, and just kind of have that be, like a weird kind of edge thing that you do with the fingers. But yeah, so it's like you can take the same elements and draw them with different ways of drawing. Like you're using more straight lines, you're using more intense shapes. So this is kind of like where the two things meet. So when we're talking about shape, shape is, shape design, this whole idea, like I think it's just explained in just the worst way online. I think like it gets people into a lot of trouble. I'm not going to talk about it a lot right now in terms of like my intense opinions about shape design. I think I'll do a video on shape design. I think that'll be like my actual video. But for shape in particular, in this context of shape language, right? The language of shape both relates to the what that you're drawing. So like the actual like facts of the body. Like, are you pushing different elements of the body? Because the actual objects are shapes, right? And they add up to make a a larger shape. I mean, if we were to simplify this, which is very popular, simplification of different anatomy stuff, like you could end up with just like a very, very simple, you know, body where it's just very, very simplified. You know, and all of the shapes change and the shape language changes now that we have different elements of simplification. Somewhat of like a lazy explanation, but you know, you get the idea when you like simplify really, really narrowly. Um, so there's the actual literal shape of the actual thing, in which case you're thinking about like how those different literal shapes play off of each other. But then you have the how you draw the thing. So how you are choosing to bring those shapes into reality. Are you bringing those shapes into reality with a sense of softness, or are you bringing them into reality with a sense of like rigid geometric, you know, energy? And this can go, these are just, it's not just like hard and soft. Those are just two of infinite variables that you could choose, you know, in terms of how you're doing your hands and how you're designing your hands. But when people are talking about shape language, what you want to focus on is that the the shapes that you're drawing with, they have relationships with each other that are usually like consistent. So, you know, you don't want to do something where it's like you have a lot of really nice flow and then all of a sudden, abruptly, you start doing really hard like geometric shapes for like how you're drawing something. If it's like the same thing, it can create like a sense of, well, why is that different than the other thing? So it's like consistency, you know, it's why this guy looks kind of good, the guy we're drawing, you know, it's because there's a consistency of that concave convex energy of this, like there's a consistency here of this and this and this, and contrast is nice. But if I like all of a sudden added an element like let me see, like what would be weird here. um I don't know. I guess like if I added like a random I don't know. Gosh, I actually just don't know what would make this weird or bad. It's hard to like make a bad drawing sometimes when you're when you practice so long to be good at drawing. It's really hard to make a bad drawing. But um if I, for instance, if I did something like this, like if I made the nose just like a big square, like if I made the nose just like a big square here, it just would kind of look a little out of place. It adds an element of interest, but it kind of looks a little out of place, you know? But if I had, now that looks kind of good actually. I think if I did this maybe, because there's nothing in the piece that has this same kind of energy of that kind of like bulbous energy, I guess. But if we changed other things to have this kind of bulbous energy, and I kind of did this, and I kind of, you know, changed some other stuff, it wouldn't look out of place in the same way. So it's like, but that's like a very corny, like literal example, but it's usually about the choices you make. So like, how I want you to think about shape language is, first of all, obsessing over shape language with figure drawing, I think like maybe isn't so good. Try to implement shape language with the the literal choices of design that you're making. So like if you're drawing a cat, is it a big bushy cat? Is it a big round cat? Is it a slinky cat? You know, try and focus on the quality of the literal thing and kind of let those shapes sink into your mind. And then later on, when you're working on your figure drawing, like the stylization and the shape language, it's going to be more of a natural expression. You know, it's going to be a very natural expression of your impulse to draw. So yeah, just a recap overall, you know, there's the literality of the shape language where it's like if you change the actual literal elements of what you're drawing to be more stylized, you can influence the language of shape that way. But if you're drawing something literal and you're not necessarily changing the proportions or changing the literal elements, you know, you can affect the shape language with the how you're drawing it. So how you're drawing, you know, the folds of the skin, or how you're drawing the flow of the hair, you know, that then becomes the kind of shape language. But it's a lot more about the what you're drawing rather than like the, you know, trying to get some kind of like thing. Also, I think there's a bit of a weird misnomer of like, when we're talking about fundamentals and shape language comes up or shape design comes up, people are like, oh, you need good shapes to be a good artist. And it's like in some ways, like, yeah, sure, okay, maybe. But in many other ways, the shape language that you're going for, you're trying to get a result. You're not just doing good shape language because shape language is good. It's like the same as saying I'm doing good lighting. It's like you can do correct lighting, in which case, the lighting is reflective of the scenario that you've placed it in. But is it working towards like good lighting would be lighting that is correct and working towards the story. So shape language, it needs to be working towards the story. So you need to have a reason why you're even using shape language to begin with. So like I would say like shape design and shape language is something that I don't think is as much of a priority as people think it is, necessarily. This is coming from somebody like me who I never focused on shape language, when I was drawing. And also it's like, I just drew what I wanted to draw, and what I wanted to draw usually had this commonality of shape that I just can't help because it's my taste. Um, so it's like your sense of shape language and your sense of shape design is going to improve no matter what if you just keep drawing. Because you're going to be drawn to the stuff that you like, you're going to make a mental note of it, you're going to notice it, you're going to want to draw it. But if you just sit and do like static studies of like bodies and you're like, I need to make these better shape language or shape design, it's like it can start to feel forced, and you might not even make the progress you want to make. Like, so many ideas around art that people focus on as like, you got to get better at this. It's like a lot of the getting better at it is just drawing an ungodly amount, and you'll naturally get better over time. There's very few things that I think like the kind of hyper conscious effort and study that people are talking about actually yields a strong result. But also, let's just take a second here and acknowledge I'm just a guy. I'm Gabriel. I'm just a guy, you know? Be very careful when you listen to what I have to say. Weigh it in your own mind. Make sure that it makes sense to you. Make sure that you know how you feel. I'm just some guy. I live in New York City. I'm an artist. I've worked really hard for the artistic skills that I have, and so I have a lot of opinions on it. But who knows? Who knows? But I have a lot of opinions about shape design, and they're really intense. So there you go. Anyway, I hope that helps Off-Brand Rock. I hope that helps with your idea or your focus on shape. You'll get better. Just keep drawing. Hong Liang says, "Hi, what up, Hong Liang?" Corey Garrett says, I feel like every artist has a different shape language that is to their hand. Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. Absolutely. People can't help it. You can't help it. You can't help it in the same way that it's like some people just like to draw like hot vampires. Some people like to draw like weird trolls. Some people like to draw like random. It's like you can't help what you like to draw. Shape is very, very similar to that. Yeah, I'm going to do a big shape design video. At some point. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. All right. I really like this character we're drawing here. I like him a lot. Hong Liang says, finally can watch your live stream. I know, man. You inspired me, You were like, why aren't you streaming more, man? I'm like, I don't know. Every day I've been putting it off, Every day I'm like, oh, I should stream. And then somehow the day slips away and I don't go live. So today, even though it's like literally midnight for me, I had to break the streak of not streaming and just go live, man. Because again, like I really care about, like connecting with people from all over the world. So like there's always somebody awake in the world, you know? We love our international homies. International homies are lit. Jiriri says, when you're creating a character for a personal project and not for a client, do you make any kind of briefing? I have a difficulty creating new things. Okay, well, let's start with you saying you have a difficulty creating new things. Creating new things. So if you have a difficulty creating new things, we first have to unpack some stuff here. So let's rule out, first of all, we got to rule some stuff out here. So creating new things. Let's firstly rule out maybe you have a complex about being original. So before you make something, you like need it to be an original idea. So you prevent yourself from just drawing maybe like a classic archetype or something like that because you feel like it's been done before and you feel like, you know, oh, well, you know, I can't, there's something I can add or something. So let's rule that out. Let's say that's not your problem. So it's not your problem, the originality complex, which pretty much every intermediate artist has this problem, including myself when I was like, you know, younger and stuff. Like I needed everything to be really original and all that stuff. So let's rule that out. Okay, so let's say that's not your problem. The other thing for creating new things is let's rule out that let's rule out that you gotta be careful about how I phrase this. Having trouble creating new things. Yeah. Well, let's assume, right? Let's assume that you love drawing, first of all. Let's assume that you love drawing and you're a deeply interested person. So let's say that you love drawing and that you're a deeply interested person. I didn't say curious because curious has a different implication. Curious is often like you go looking. Interested means you're like very invested in something and you care, right? And you have knowledge on something and you want to acquire more knowledge, let's say. So let's say that you love drawing and you're a deeply interested person. If you are doing a personal project, again, that also has a whole lot of weight to it as well, like this idea of a personal project. So let's say you're working on a personal project, or a PP for short, which is what we call it in my friend group for some reason because it's funny. But let's say you've got a personal project that you're working on. What is the purpose of this personal project? Is it for portfolio? Is it just because it's fun? Is it just because you have the urge to create? These are all different things to examine when you're having a project. Yeah, okay, so portfolio, there you go. So there's your problem. Well, there's some stuff comes up for here. So we've ruled out some areas. We're saying portfolio. So you're making your personal project for your portfolio. First of all, bit of an oxymoron, right? Because if you're making a portfolio project, if you're making a personal project, it's for your personal interest. If it's for a portfolio, you are trying to satisfy external criteria for someone else to hire you. It's like a necessity. It's a requirement. It's like essential. You have to do it. So immediately there's a war here where you want to do something, but oh wait, I can't because it has to satisfy the criteria for a portfolio. So before you even start your idea, before you even start your project, before you even start your character, you immediately have to pass through the gates of, is this going to look good in a portfolio, right? And every time you walk up to these gates, you're usually going to say, I don't think so. This isn't going to be good for a portfolio because it doesn't necessarily show this or show that or show blah, 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 blah. So then you're going to walk away and leave again and then all of that stuff. If you have client work, right, the client needs something very specific from you. That very specific thing is usually like very clearly spelled out. They have a process that they want you to follow. They want you to get to an outcome that is very useful for them. And they want you to like solve a very particular problem for them. So they're hiring out your problem solving brain and your ability to draw and create for their product. So they're like hiring out your, like, think about like renting a tractor. They're renting your brain, basically. That's what they're doing. So when you're doing client work, the outcome is you get money for designing this thing for them, which is like a very powerful motivator, especially when you're being paid like a lot to do concept, let's say. It's like a very, very powerful motivator. So you don't really care about your own personal preferences or your own kind of feelings because at the end of the day, you get like a big paycheck, which is awesome. So then it's kind of like that's just it, right? There's no sense of the personal to it. Maybe you add in some stuff that you care about, like ideally it's fun, ideally it's this cool thing. But with client-based stuff, when they give you a brief, it's like, we want this and you get money. You're like, okay, cool, fair enough. So coming back to this example of the personal project for portfolio, oh man, I just think it's a mistake, to be honest. Like I think that we should look at some examples of some work. Let's see. Yeah. Let's look at some work from concept artist Ari Pin. Big inspiration for me and for many others. This was her project for her, I think, art center final, I'm pretty sure. I think. We'll pull all this up. It's called Ambrosia, this project. It's a really good project. We've talked about it before on stream before. So, man, we're really tangenting here. We're getting into it. I should rename this stream Advice. Advice stream. Yeah. So we'll just do this many, and then we'll call it here. There's still more work, but we'll leave it here for now. So, we'll do one more. Why not? Okay, so let's grab all these. Okay. So, let's just go through these, man, because these are some really compelling pieces that I think are really good. And Ari is a really, really kind and chill person who's very, very skilled at what they do. So let's take a look at some of these pieces. These pieces are really cool, right? We got this princess character. She has like this cool honeycomb weapon. She's got this like goo on her back. She's like carrying a thing, and we see her like using and swinging her abilities around using magic and all of that stuff. Pretty sick, right? It's pretty awesome. And the drawings themselves, the outcomes are pretty cool. Like I really like that the outcomes are pretty cool. And we kind of expand on this more with some props where we're looking at this like honeycomb prop. We're looking at this lamp thing. We got some really cool elements here. Wow, so compelling, so interesting. We got the silhouette design, you know, the different tiered elements. We've got a cool, some early design. So she's showing her process, showing you how she got to her final result for the design. Here we have like a little environment thing where she's got like the princess's desk with magnifying lenses and lamps and dias and all these cool things. Like super interesting, right? The cool like giant magnifying glasses on the desk is so cool. And like there's a lot of cool stuff here that's like interesting and adds a lot of dynamism and intrigue. Here we have some like natural elements, you know? So here we see someone like climbing on the walls to kind of harvest this goo maybe, or who knows, you know, these cool honeycomb like bee homes or something like that. We have these cool birds eating from these flowers. And here we got the climber themselves here. Really clean costume, super simple concept, bow, arrows, pickaxe thing. They got their gear, they got their incense horns, pretty cool. Here we see them actually climbing, so we got a little action pose here and some steps of bone, so a cool little foot brace and this cool thing. Here we got some iterations for that, how they got to the final design. Got an environment here, so a cool top-down 3/4, very dynamic, very, very dynamic environment. Big bell, you know, some cool stuff, some prayer bell, all that cool stuff. We got a villain. We got the queen here. This is pretty much a staple for whenever I teach a class, we go over this design because it's such a good design. Got the queen character. You kind of instantly know they're evil. Got a cool costume element. Very interesting. Here we see them like transformed in their wicked transformed bird form. Very cool. Very cool design. And kind of like a environment shot of like the world. So you get a sense of the space and the scale. So the reason I bring this up is because we usually have this association that our personal, our projects for portfolio, they have to be dumbed down, they have to be very rigid, and they have to be very safe. They have to be extremely conservative, and you have to draw them perfectly. And they have to have this like really clear and obvious element, and it has to be like bulletproof and clear. Looking through this, first of all, I think this is the portfolio she got hired for Blizzard. She got hired straight out of Art Center before she even finished. She's I think a lead at Blizzard now. But if you look at this piece, right, this is well drawn, obviously. It's very clear. Like everything's very clear, elements are very clear. But the inking style is more loose than you think. Like especially, you know, if we look over here and we look at this hand, it's kind of sus, you know, a little bit sus. But it doesn't matter because we're just showing the idea, and the idea is really cool. I also love the pattern callouts. The pattern callouts are a really beautiful just graphic design element for this thing. But yeah, we oftentimes get this impression that these portfolio projects have to be super rigid and like boring and annoying, and oh man, I gotta do props, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, oh I gotta do characters, oh yeah, I don't know where to start because blah blah blah. If you want to put something in your portfolio, it can be as wild and insane as you can possibly imagine. You can put the most insane, weird thing in your portfolio. It's going to be fine as long as the design is executed with clarity and the idea is really clear. It can be a very simple idea, but the idea needs to be clear, right? So here the idea is very clear. She uses the goo on her back, and she's got a goo wand. That's just clear. It's just obvious, right? Here, she, you know, uses this candle for stuff, for like the ceremonial purpose. We have these props. Obviously, this is an area of study. It has some important drawers for different materials here, right? That's pretty obvious. Here, we can see that, you know, the birds like these flowers. And we can see that this person is a climber, obviously. They climb things. And where things don't make sense, you add text. So incense horns. A strong incense wafts through the ambrosia-coated horn to keep away the Iadi, which is, I think, the creature from before. Yeah, the bird. So, like, you want to keep the birds away, so you have these incense horns. Boom. Explained. Done. So, there you go. Yeah, over here, this is just super obvious. Steps of bone. They just use bones to climb. They have their spiky feet, and they use bones. Super easy. Super duper easy to understand. Super clear drawing here. Very clear drawing. They're not going crazy with rendering. They're not going crazy with, like, insane levels of detail with inking. It's, like, very gestural and simple, and, you know, but it's clear, man. It's clear. So even stuff like this 3-point perspective, it's easier to do this than you think it is, by the way. Like, this kind of, like, plotting out perspective in 3 points. This design is just sick as hell, bro. There's no other way to say it other than this is just a sick drawing. But even this, like, if you look at the quality of the drawing, it's like there's not as many paint strokes as you think. It's just pretty loosely done, but it's done with like a sense of real effort and clarity and focus. The anatomy of the wings, honestly, kind of sus. Like if you look at bird anatomy and stuff, like the wings here, it's like maybe not 100% correct. But again, like who's out here nitpicking this gorgeous drawing? No one. So it's like your worry about things being perfect is not as real as you think. It's better that it's clear, very, very striking, very bold. It's just way better. And even something like this, if you really zoom in and look at all the detail, there's just not as much detail as you think there is. It's like very limited detail, you know? It's just a lot of lines. This just takes a long time, but it's very doable. Again, the plotting out this perspective is quite basic. Anyway, so I bring all that up to kind of go back to this thing of, you know, you are worried about your project, your personal project, and you want to make something for your portfolio. So you end up standing at these gates going, is this good enough for a portfolio for like the industry or whatever? And you're saying no all the time. The answer isn't no. The answer is always yes. This is good for your portfolio if you do it with real love and conviction and clarity and purpose. Because if you said like, oh, a princess with a honey backpack and she does like honey ceremonies and there's a guy who climbs walls and there's a witch who turns into a bird, you're like, oh, no, man, that's too crazy for a portfolio. I got to do something more basic. It's like, no, man. You really, really have to pursue with your whole heart. If you keep having this idea that your portfolio is this thing that's not you, it's this extra thing that you'll do begrudgingly because you have to, it's just, it can really hold you back. Compared to if you embrace the fact that your portfolio is a reflection of you. Stop being afraid that industries won't hire you. Like you're afraid they're not going to hire you, so you make the portfolio inauthentic to who you are. Because if someone doesn't hire you for the portfolio that is your heart on a page, then that's like they're not hiring your heart on a page. It's very emotional. What you should be more concerned about is that you don't want to be so... You don't want to, I mean, this is for me, I don't want to be so generic and basic that everyone would want to hire me. I would rather like 10 out of 100 people are desperately trying to hire me rather than 100 people kind of like maybe hiring me. Because like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you sort of fit the bill. I guess we could fit you in somewhere rather than we need Gabriel. You know, like to be desired requires you to be, you know, specific. Anyway, that's my little brief rant. And the whole thing of like having trouble creating new things, like the reason why I didn't really answer that question with a generic answer is because I feel like this is probably the root of the problem rather than the fact that you're having trouble creating new things. I don't think you actually have trouble creating new things. I think you have trouble saying yes to those things. You have like an idea of, no, it's not, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. Rather than going, how crazy can I make this thing? And seeing that as an opportunity and a challenge. That's what I would recommend. Try that. If that doesn't work, come back and ask again. We'll run it back, dude. That's what I'd say about that. Oh man, we're getting deep today. Forgot you guys ask these deep questions sometimes. I hope that was helpful. Priority number one. Dobby's Free says, where can we hit you up for mentorships? Oh, dude, just hit me up on like Instagram. It's the best way. I'll see it. My Instagram should be in the bio. Is my Instagram in the bio? It should be. It should be, brother. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's there. I'll put it in the chat anyway, just so you guys have it. Yeah, hit me up, dude. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're in a good spot. I like this guy. He's kind of cool. I think this will probably live as a sketch for now. I don't see myself like finishing this, I don't think. Jiriri says, thank you so much for the feedback. I'll hold this in my heart. You better. Hold it close. Hold it close. So much love I have for you guys. So much encouragement. I believe in you. You can do extraordinary things, man. All right, let's see. Oh man, I feel, when your eyes do that sleepy thing where you're like, I'm starting to feel that way. We might have to think about signing off relatively soon. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, Ryan. Care about you, dude. Want you to succeed, man. Okay. Yeah, this little guy's great. I love him. There we go. Something's wrong about this arm. Yeah, there we go. Is that right? Actually, I don't know. So he's like leaning back. He's kind of hunched over a little bit. I have him kind of hunched over here. I like wrote myself into a corner, like with how this guy's posture is. There's no way out. Oh man, you guys know what I watched recently? I watched the show Firefly the first time. It was so fun. Oh my gosh. I was like not expecting it to be that fun. Made me want to do some like fan art or something. It was like I've never wanted to do fan art, but I kind of wanted to do it for that show because it's so good. That show rules. I can't believe it didn't get a season 2. I can't believe it. Like blows my mind, man. They should bring it back. All the actors are still around. They should totally bring it back. I wonder if Nathan Fillion would even do it. Do you think he would do it? I think he would do it. It's this like fun kind of like cowboy vibe, like space cowboy vibe. Um, it's really fun. Each episode is kind of like this weird, moral problem and also, like technical problem, and it's just like they do a lot of genre bending, so there's a lot of fun like cool genre references. Like they have this one episode where they go to this planet where it's like very like high society. But the funny part about it is that it's the show is so low budget, so it's like it's just funny to see how they try to make certain things like look fancy or look this or look that, but sometimes you just know like it's just, you just feel the budget of the show sometimes. But there's a funny episode where they go to this like fancy planet, and the guy accidentally gets himself into some kind of bind and accidentally challenges some guy to a duel and has to duel this guy. And it's like a British, style duel where, like the fog is on the bank, and it's like Duel at Dawn. It like just looks like an old period piece out of like, some like old British period piece. And Nathan Fillion has to duel this guy with a sword, and it's just awesome. That's just one of many really fun episodes of the story. Have you seen Captain Harlock? No, I haven't. Let me look it up. Oh, this is old. Oh my gosh. Wait, wait, wait. I've seen like clips of this, but I've never watched it. Dude, I'll have to watch this. This looks so cool. Yeah, I'm like gonna rewatch Cowboy Bebop soon. It's happening. All right. This sketch is about as far as I want to go for something like this. Maybe next time we'll do a bit more on this guy. Let's hop back to our environment piece. Ooh, yeah, nice. I feel like I needed some space on this one to kind of come back to it with fresh eyes. I feel like I needed to come back with fresh eyes. Oh, I love it now. Oh my gosh, I was so hard on it before, but I really like it now. It looks so cool. Dude, this looks so cool. Oh my gosh, what the heck? I'm tempted to go in with like an oil paintbrush or something. Yeah, something like this. Sometimes brushes like this. I think this is like the classic one from the Kyle's brush pack, the wet media one. If you have Photoshop, you can just go download it off of like the Kyle Webster website. It just like has this really nice blend that I like a lot. And it's great for this kind of diffusion when you want to like diffuse. Hello? Yeah. Diffuse like clouds or certain elements you want to just kind of like blur out a little bit. You can see it just does a really nice job. Just areas that you kind of lightly brush over, it just kind of softens it just ever so slightly. Which is nice. We want to be careful though with how, again, the visual clarity of something is always like the most important thing to me. Anyway, it seems to be the most important thing to me these days. So we want to be careful where we are blending and softening edges. But yeah, I was mentioning before my friend Alex Henderson helping me improve my clouds. He taught me that if you're like able to break the silhouette a little bit and like diffuse the silhouette slightly and kind of almost have it be a little bit more like misty in certain spots or something, like it kind of sells the cloud feeling rather than just having everything be a hard edge. But of course, he's very good at it, and I am less practiced, but I'd like to be better. Yeah, the better you get at art, the more you realize you're never going to be a master of everything. So you got to like pick your battles in terms of the kind of things you want to be really good at, and focusing on those things. And I'm still learning for me what that means for me, like in terms of how hard I want to go with certain skills. One thing I think I've pretty much 100% let go of is the 3D stuff. There was a while where I was a little on the fence about it, about like, maybe I'll learn 3D, maybe I'll get into 3D. It's just not me, dude. It's just not me. It's never me. I think it's just a process that I just doesn't feel natural to me. Does that make it harder for me to get hired? Absolutely. But that's okay, dude. That's okay. Oh yeah, this is looking real nice. Looking real nice. I'm really liking how this is going so far. So we got some nice volumes here. Really working these edges, you know? Get a lot out of these edges. I think, I hope. All right, let's see. Whoa, you guys wrote a lot in chat. Hot damn. Haha, that's funny, Ryan. Our friend Rock says, I have an enjoyment for 3D animation. That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah. Duriri says, I started a 3D course made for illustrators that a Brazilian artist made. And it's just 6 hours, and holy moly, it helped a lot. Specifically lighting. That's awesome. That's so cool. Whoa. Hell yeah. Oh man, I know I'm starting to get tired when I start to go nonverbal when I stream. I like notice, I'm like, wait, I haven't been talking. That means I'm getting tired. It's so funny. I don't know. Would you guys be interested in like a silent stream once in a while? Gotta be careful. Am I adding complexity for no reason? I think so. I think I'm adding complexity for no reason. Oh, you learn Maya but have to move to Blender. Yeah, that's rough, man. Learning new software is just such a nightmare. It's just very demotivating. Drury says, yeah, even the professor at my uni said Maya is difficult. People have difficulty to switch. Yeah. TXLR says, haven't watched you in a while. Is it like too late for you? Well, it's almost, I might call it in about 30 minutes when it's 1 a.m., I think. Dobby says, do you use Blender, Gabriel? I do not use Blender typically, I don't use Blender for my workflows. That might change in the future. Who knows? But right now, I just, I don't know. This is going to sound weird. And it's like, this is a very personal thing for me. So I don't want you guys to take this as like something I believe is true for everybody or that is like 100% true or you should do this. In fact, the opposite. I want you to like actively challenge and try to figure out if I'm wrong about this because I don't know if I'm right about it. But, I live in New York City and I go to the Met like all the time, the Met Museum of Art, which is like one of the greatest art museums in the world in human history. It's just the amount of phenomenal work in that museum is just incredible. And I look at all these masterpieces around there, and I'm walking through and I'm looking at these masterpieces. And I personally just noticed that, 3D wasn't around when these guys were painting, Of course they were using reference and all that stuff, but they weren't using 3D. If I look at Sid Mead, do you guys know Sid Mead? Dude, 3D wasn't around when Sid Mead was painting. Let me show you a Sid Mead painting. So you get like a sense of the vibe of a Sid Mead painting. Yeah. Check it out. Pretty crazy painting if you ask me. This kind of stuff. But it's like I look at these paintings, of production artists in the past and all of that stuff, and I these guys weren't using 3D or Blender or stuff like that, and even digital is already like a pain to my heart when it comes to making art, because I just love painting so much. I just like love art so much. So even using digital painting mediums instead of real paint already is like hard for me. So 3D is like, it's just too disconnecting. And I think that really separates me from a specific group of like artists and like industry artists, where a lot of people, their biggest priority is employability. And that's like super real, dude. That's like a real thing for people. Like, I'm not out here saying that like going for 3D makes you an artist who's not committed to the craft. But I think when I think about like the kind of artist that I am, what I care about, what I like doing, 3D is just not really in that conversation. I just don't really like it that much. But again, that could change in the future. I'm so open, I'm so open to using 3D and Blender and stuff in the future. But right now, I think like I want to be able to be like a godlike painter and draftsman before I start worrying about 3D, I don't know if that makes sense. But again, like grain of salt, seriously, like that's something that I like, very personal thing for me, and I could be totally wrong about it. Um yeah, typically juniors, definitely you want to know Photoshop. But it's like also dude, there's a bit of a I'll talk about it very briefly. I'm not gonna do like a commentary video about it, so I'll talk about it very briefly, I guess. But there's kind of like a cult of art media right now online, where the people who are the best at teaching you how to draw and paint, they are concept artists. It's not illustrators. Illustrators aren't as good. It's not fine artists, certainly. Those guys have just no idea how to teach. Maybe you have Proco for like very specific technical stuff, but you're not going to learn like design theory from Proco, You're not going to learn like, anyway, that's just, I don't know. But you're going to learn a lot of really useful stuff. So it's like the people who are actually teaching you how to draw what you want to draw, like in your head, or the idea, is concept artists. So what happens a lot of the time is then people adopt the belief that, oh, that means I have to become a concept artist. So there's all these guys who just become concept artists because they learned how to draw and paint from concept artists. But that might not actually be what you want to do. Like, you might enjoy other things more. You might enjoy comics more. You might enjoy illustration, even if it's not the kind of illustration that you see yourself doing. Also, like, a lot of people, there's like a comfort to concept art because it's like you don't have to be like a god to be a concept artist, although that's changing every day. But there's this idea that if you want to just make money with your art, or you want to just sell art, or you want to just like be an artist who is just really good and people like them, there's this like kind of feeling of impossibility where, like if there's like Titan examples like Loish or, people like that, where it's like they obviously just make an extraordinarily good living because people just like their art and like them. but no one thinks that that could be their path because that's just not for them. Instead, they have to go this industry route and all of that stuff. But, when you think about it, like, and this is like a guarantee that I think not enough young artists know, but if you just keep going and you really keep trying, you're going to become better than you could ever possibly imagine at art. And you can get to the point where you are like as good as those like Titan examples of artists where like they just have a big following because people like their art. It's like, it's not like that's not an option, you know? And the way the industry is going, sometimes it feels like that's just as safe of a bet as trying to become an industry artist because the scene is so like, not to be a doomer, but it's like pretty crazy. The concept art scene is pretty dire, my guy. But anyway, this is all like just random stuff, and I probably shouldn't even be talking about this because giving advice or telling people things is it's so risky because like you don't want to impact someone's life in a negative way. But it's possible. It's possible for you to become a wildly successful artist just making the art that you like to make and just making paintings. The thing is that it's just so hard to get there. It's so hard to become an extraordinary artist. You just kind of rule it out when you're young and you think like, oh, well, I'll train to be a concept artist. That's my workaround. That's what I'll do instead. But if you just keep going, all the successful artists I know who are like really successful as just artists, they're all like in their 30s, dude. 30s, sometimes late 30s, sometimes 40s, It's a long path. It can be a long path. If you, in terms of like mastery, it takes a long time. So it's like if you're in it for the long haul anyway, like why skimp yourself out of a really amazing option, which would be just making art for you? Yeah. To get a little bit personal for a second, like I just got so sick of like the projects I was working on getting canceled. I just got so sick of it, like the industry stuff. Like it was really getting to me. The fact that like nothing I made was ever going to be seen by anyone ever. It was like months of work, years of work, just never to be seen, locked in just some like vault somewhere, under NDA. Like a lot of my work is just under NDA and I just can never show it to anybody and it's just gone. So that really got to me and it put a really sour taste in my mouth for just industry stuff in general. And, we'll see how the independent thing goes, man. So far, it's going really well. So I like it. It's really fun. I'm just working on like embracing it more for myself, I guess. But drawing is so cool. People forget just how cool drawing is, That's a lot of what my mission is with this channel and just in general, is just to remind people that drawing is just so cool. For like a few minutes a day, forget about all the industry stuff, forget about all the other stuff, and just like remember how fun and cool drawing is. You can just make images of whatever you want based on what's in your incredible, beautiful imagination. That's such a wonderful thing, Such a cool, wonderful, wild part of our world, And subconsciously or somehow in your mind, you've chosen one of the hardest things to do ever, which is draw. Drawing is one of the hardest things to do. Becoming an artist is one of the hardest things to do. The knowledge base and the amount of time you have to practice is so vast. People talk about 10,000 hours in terms of mastery. Drawing is more, way more than 10,000 hours, dude. It's like, a lot. I've probably put in like double 10,000 hours by this point. And even me, like I want to be so much better than I am. But art is a very unique path. And don't ever be discouraged to just pursue mastery of art because of the industry. Like don't ever be discouraged. Like just always just keep betting on the steady advancement of your skill, It's a great thing to just consistently like be working towards. For me, like there have been a lot of ups and downs in my life in terms of like real tough stuff happening to me. But for some reason, no matter how hard things got, I just kept drawing. Like no matter what, I just kept drawing. And the miracle of that, and one thing I'm so grateful from that experience, is that now, like, I have this skill of drawing, which is like, yeah, sometimes it feels like you don't know how that skill translates into like monetary value, but it's just such an incredible skill that I'm so grateful that I have. And like, the fact that I just like never stopped drawing is why, I kept progressing in the direction I wanted to go. But a lot of people, they get discouraged and they just stop. Then like 3 years go by and they're like, oh, I want to get back into art. It's like, if you had been drawing that whole time, you'd already be so much closer to mastery. So if you love drawing, just keep drawing, man. Keep drawing. No matter how freaked out you get, no matter what happens, just keep going. Everything makes more sense as you keep going. Got some stuff in the chat here. At my school, they encourage us to do paintings in plein air a lot. Oh yeah, such good training. They also make sure for us to be well versed in certain software. Yeah, that's great, man. Blender especially is such a good hedge. I think if I like wanted to do concept art when I was younger, like when I was 17, 18, I think I would have learned Blender. It would have been part of my workflow, but it's just not. I just became like a drawing max guy. I just like max out on drawing. W's Free says they make us involve Blender in our process. True, true, true. Blender is very encouraging. Yeah, absolutely. The NDA Doom. Michael Ware says I'm 3 years in. And yeah, where I want to be and where I'm at now is so vast still. Yeah, 3 years, man. Like you never want to discourage people. You never want to be like, it takes so long. But to give you some perspective, like for me, what am I? I'm like, how long have I been doing this? I mean, like, okay, so I started taking art seriously when I was like, what? When I was young. So if I count that, I've been in it for like 13 years. But if I count like when I started going really hard, I've been in it for like 5. I think I'm 5 years into like really intensely pursuing professional art. I've been an artist my whole life, but I think like for the past 5 years I've been like really going hard and trying to just keep getting to that next door, getting to the next gate, getting to that next step. All right, I'm liking this piece a lot. This is looking pretty sick. Still not sold on this little ship though. There's something like wrong with it. I think it's the light. I think I got to do a highlight on this guy. Yeah, I think having like a pretty bold highlight on the ship, I think it helps. You can have it be more of like an actual cast shadow, I think. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I like that. Do I want to make this like a cast shadow and then a form shadow? Yeah, that kind of goes hard. Let's see. Let me zoom out. Yeah, that looks nice. Ooh, nice. Looking real nice. Looking real nice. And then we want to have maybe like just a bit on the rim here. Yeah. Oh, that's crisp. That's crisp. I love that. Yeah, that fixed everything. All right, we're good. We're good. Off-Brand Rock says, I feel the biggest speed run on learning, something I've ever had, is being an art lead for a college senior project. Oh yeah, dude, that'll push you. That'll push you for sure. Putting yourself in the position where you're pushed really hard, I think is the best thing you can do. Because being a creative person, right? Let's say you're working a creative job, it's really hard. I think that, okay, again, personal take. You know what? We're gonna go face cam for this just because it's important, in my opinion. Okay. So let's say, for instance, right, that we look at certain jobs that are held in high regard, like a doctor or like a lawyer or an engineer or something along those lines, where we know there is a high level of effort involved, both cognitively, but actually skill wise, a high level of effort to do those jobs. It's really, really hard to be a lawyer, really hard to be an engineer, really hard to be a doctor. Like, it's really hard. You have to study so hard, work so hard. It's like a major challenge. So also, if you look at like the world of professional sports or something like that, those guys at the top, man, their life revolves around this. It's like crazy and they love it, first of all. So let's pivot to something like art, right? Where we have this feeling that art is different because it's based on how you feel and it's based on your level of like inspiration, what's gripping you, you know, who you are as a person. You know, if you're kind of struggling or feeling down, it's hard to be creative because it relies on that sense of inner spirit or that sense of inner well-being. That's all true. But there's a disconnect when then you say that the moment art starts to get like hard or the moment the job starts getting really intense, you have to step away and go, I don't want to burn out. I'm stepping away. I don't want to burn out. You know, people are really afraid of burnout. So the problem with that is that if you wanted to pursue law or pursue being a doctor, if you had that same feeling of, oh, I don't want to burn out. I got to stop. I'm stopping. I can't do this. This is too challenging. This is going to wreck me. My mental health is going to wreck my personal well-being and all that stuff. You will never become a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer because you'll never pass the bar. You'll never pass the MCAT. You'll never pass the whatever. And in the sports example, you'll never get through tryouts. You'll never get through that stuff because you just will not be qualified if you stop when things get really, really hard. So what you have to remember with art is it's like anything else. If something is really challenging, oftentimes it's temporary. It's really challenging for you now. It's the first time you're doing it now. So in the future, when you do it again, it'll get a little easier and then a little easier and then a little easier. If I tried to do a piece, even like what I'm doing here, this like painting of a ship in the clouds or something like that, we'll come over back here for a second. If I tried to do this like 4 years ago, it would have been an overwhelming piece for me. It would have been a little too challenging. I would have gotten a little bit lost. I would have gotten confused, frustrated. I wouldn't have known how to control the values, how to like properly render out the clouds. I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I would be like really sporadic and crazy about it. But now, dude, this was so easy. It took like an hour and a half, super easy. Because I went through the process of facing that challenge over and over and over. You know, it was really hard to learn how to paint. It's still really hard to paint. I'm going to be honest, it's hard. But I just keep, you know, throwing myself at it over and over and over, and I'm starting to feel so much more confident. You know, I'm pretty confident as an artist, like, because, you know, but I used to be more of like a line art guy, so that's why I'm like, when I talk about painting, I feel a little bit like I have to be very humble about painting because I'm still, you know, developing my like high level professional skills in painting. You know, I wouldn't say I'm bad at painting, but it's certainly not as good as I am at line art, let's say. But going back to what I was saying before is like, it's hard right now. It's really challenging right now. Anatomy's hard right now. Figure drawing's hard right now. Complex perspective environments. People just quit and walk away and they go, I don't want to burn out. Just be aware that when you set those parameters for yourself and you say, when things get hard, I stop, it's quite possible that you will never acquire the skills to make your dreams a reality, you know? What I'm not saying is to overwork yourself, ignore sleep, ignore healthy habits and patterns that will lead you towards a greater success, because you should be getting good sleep. You should be taking healthy patterns, eating enough, sleeping enough, having water. But if you really want to go hard at this and you want to acquire those phenomenal artistic skills that people so desperately want, and for good reason, it's unbelievably fun to know how to paint and draw anything you want. It's unbelievably dynamic and exciting and cool. It's just so fun, and it's obvious that it's fun. So that's why people want it so bad, and you can get it. You just got to work so hard. But just like those people who pursue those really tough things like being a lawyer or a doctor, all that stuff, you got to optimize not just your craft, but also your rest. You have to make sure that your life is set up so that you can be putting in the effort to get the gains that lead you towards that sense of fulfillment. Because, it might feel pretty fulfilling, like hitting diamond in Overwatch or whatever, but it's never going to be as fulfilling as being able to like paint a beautiful, beautiful painting. That's just on another level. So just be careful where you have your sense of accomplishment, where you have where you're placing all your energy and your efforts, and be very, very careful about how you rest. Do not rest by going on your phone and scrolling reels forever. Don't rest that way. That's not rest. You will be cooked if you do that. So let's hop back into the drawing here for a little bit. Anyway, Jiriri says that's so juicy. Heck yeah, dude, let's go. Off-Brand Rock says working with other people can help. Oh man, yeah, having like a community is so huge. You just gotta be careful that your community is actually like has the same goals as you. I've done it many times where I think people have the same goals as me because they say they do. Like they say they want to work really hard, they say they want to improve, but the second you start inching ahead of them in skill, they like flip out and it's like crabs in a bucket. And I just, I hate that so much, bro. Hate it so much. Tabby says, so motivating. Ryan's got the heart emoji. Hell yeah, guys, let's go. That's a good place to end it, actually. So I really love this piece. Let's do a little bit of processing here. Let's do a couple effects layers. Effects layers are always fun, right? Let's do a the similar process what we did before, where we'll add oh, you want to see a really weird one? I wonder if you'll be able to see the window. Probably not, eh? No, you probably won't see the window. Let's see. Can you see? Oh, you can. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So here we have gradient editor for the gradient map. And what we've done is we've set it from solid to noise. And what you can do is you can randomize this. And it kind of like every different value is a different color. And you can kind of randomize. And there's like a roughness factor. If you put the roughness like really low, then it's going to be like really simple. If you put the roughness really high, it's going to just be like insane. I think low is kind of better. So you can kind of randomize this a few times. Ooh, this looks kind of cool. This effect here. So this is interesting. You can then take this and use it as an effects layer. So I can do multiple different things. I'm a big fan of linear burn if you turn it way down. Linear burn I think actually is very underrated. But you can do other effects too. Let's run through. You can even do like a lighting thing where you do like an overlay layer and you reduce it down, That adds a really cool effect too. So this is like a fun way to just like add some dynamism or some like funky effects to your piece. Like it's just kind of a cool thing sometimes, Ooh, whoa, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. Ooh, wait, this is nice. The saturation one. Let's turn it down. Turn it down. Yeah, so not a huge difference in what we're looking at. But I think it just added like a kind of a sense of color. You can see it just emphasizes a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's put the fill up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's kind of nice. I like that. And then if we want to, we can kind of blow out the values. I think, though, what we want to do is we also want to potentially move the ship to a spot where that highlight is going to pop. Like here's, I think, a little bit better. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, that looks so good. Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll do well, let's like add noise or something. Yeah, let's try that. Dude, the power of adding noise is just so cool. Love adding noise. Filter noise, add noise. Like 8%. Yeah, that looks good. All right, and there you go. You got a pretty cool piece here. So we've got a pretty fun cloud piece. I mean, what's cool about this is what we can do is we can kind of come in and we can add some like other cool elements to add scale, which I love doing. Like honestly like it's maybe a bit of a cliche for me for like my process or what I do, but I love doing like little like birds here, you know, and like a little flock kind of flying. And what's nice is kind of having that, you know, light on dark look as they kind of fly around. And then if you want to, this is where it gets like so cool. Like I'm about to show you the juiciest thing ever, in my opinion, is like you have the birds flying with the ship here and they're being lit by that really bright light. But as they're flying in, they get hit with the shadow and they get dark. So you have that really cool sense of like depth with the birds. You could even have one where it's like the wing is getting lit, half the wing is getting lit, like things like that. And when you zoom out, it just adds a sense of, oh, je ne sais quoi. It's so nice, beautiful. Wow, it's so sweet, so beautiful. I can't believe it. Wow. Who could have thought of something like this, you know? It's just gorgeous. And same with like down here, you can add like the darker birds down here, you know, in this lower area as they're flying through. So yeah, stuff like that is just a really cool thing that you can do to add scale and depth and all that stuff. It's like very, very simple things. And it's just all about knowing about light, you know? It's just light. Nothing too crazy there. All right, let's check the chat, make sure we got everything here. Dobby says, so motivating. Let's go. Duriri says, I'm so glad I stayed up to hear these amazing thoughts. Oh, me too. Me too. Ryan says, devious. Hell yeah. Chef kiss. Awesome. To the Western Air Temple. Heck yeah, dude. Absolutely. Gonna go destroy Aang, bro. Gonna go blow up Aang. So messed up. But yeah, good chat, guys. Good stream. This was a lot of fun. I think this piece was honestly really sick. I like how it turned out. I like my workflow for this project. This is a cool workflow. I've been trying to develop a better workflow for the cloud stuff, so we'll see. So I think I made some good headway there in developing my process. So thank you guys so much for being such an amazing, fantastic chat. I really appreciate it. Really amazing questions. Thanks for being patient with my long, convoluted answers. I hope those answers were helpful. We got a little bit deep in this one. You know, this is a certified deep live stream. So yeah, certified deep one, I'll say. But yeah, we had a good time. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your evening. I think I'm going to sign off. Stay tuned for I'm going to drop the link to the next course. The next course is going to be costume design for world building, or world building with costume design. It's like a title's a work in progress, but it's going to be a November class, and there's going to be early bird spots that are discounted. So that's why I'm saying keep an eye out. That'll be dropped. The link for that will be dropping in the community section of my channel, probably sometime next week, most likely. I'm assuming, I'm hoping, maybe sooner. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. Other than that, subscribe, comment on the video, like the video, subscribe and like the video. And if you want to kind of support the stream and the vibe we're going for here, and if you want to join our community Discord, which is awesome, we do a lot of cool projects in there, you can do so by joining the Patreon link in the description. It's only $3 a month, which I think is very fair. And yeah, you get a whole lot of cool activities, and you know, you get to talk to me like whenever, I guess. So there you go. Access to me personally. Yeah, all right, I'm out of here. Love you guys. Peace.